Chapter 80. Sensing that his body was filled with spiritual energy and had even improved, Long Houchin leapt up once again and continued his rapid descent. The darkness and coldness could easily make people cowardly. However, under the illumination of his own light, Long Houchin seemed especially steady. This time, his descent did not last too long. After another quarter of an hour, a layer of gray luster caught his attention. He could finally see the bottom of the cave. The wide crack suddenly narrowed. When Long Houchin's feet touched the ground, he could faintly see a gray light in front of him. Even though the gray light was very weak, it was still as eye-catching as a lighthouse in this pitch-black cave. With his shield in his left hand and his sword in his right, Long Houchin carefully cast the radiant shield on himself again with the radiant light ripple, before walking in the direction of the gray light. Oh. Soft whistling sounds constantly rang out, as if they were rehearsals for the howls in the Cave of Terror. After advancing for around 300 meters, the gray light became particularly obvious. After turning a corner, the gray light suddenly became more intense. The sudden grayish-white even caused Long Houchin's vision to become slightly unaccustomed. However, in the next moment, his beautiful golden eyes could not help but be filled with shock. He almost subconsciously took a step back and raised his shield, assuming the standard defensive posture of a guardian knight. This scene was just too shocking. No matter how many conjectures Long Houchin had about the Wailing Howl Cave, all of them turned into floating clouds when he got close to the reality. Several hundred meters in front of him was an extremely spacious space. A huge, cone-shaped cave could be seen there in its entirety. The walls of the cave were as smooth as a mirror, reflecting the faint gray light. It gave off a dreamlike, unreal feeling despite the deathly stillness. The entire cave was over 150 meters tall. Long Houchin, who had appeared at the entrance of the crack, was like an insignificant insect compared to the huge cave. This was not the most shocking thing. What made Long Houchin even more incredulous was that he actually saw a tower at a depth of at least 3,000 meters underground. That's right, it was a pagoda, a 7-story pagoda that was over 100 meters tall. It had a simple and unadorned design. It had 7 stories for sides and 8 sides. It was a grayish-white pagoda that was filled with deathly stillness and terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations. This tower was right in the middle of the conical cavern, occupying most of the area of the entire cavern. Layers of gray halos continued to spread out from the tower, and the powerful spiritual fluctuations made Long Houchin, the son of the light, tremble from the bottom of his heart. It was a terrifyingly powerful existence. This was his first impression and judgment of this tower. Around the tower were countless grayish-white lights. They were like moths darting into a flame, constantly rushing toward the tower and densely attached to the grayish-white energy outer layer emitted by the tower. At this moment, suddenly, a shrill howl erupted without warning, and the grayish-white energy attached to the tower also went berserk, scattering in all directions. The terrifying sound waves were at least 3 times stronger than the last time Long Houchin heard them, to the point that the holy light barrier around his body instantly collapsed, forcing him to release another holy light barrier in the shortest time possible, and to increase the frequency of the holy light barrier with all his might. Even so, the holy light barrier that Long Houchin released still collapsed at an alarming rate. Fortunately, the holy light barrier was only a Tier 3 spell, and Long Houchin released it one after another, which was why he was barely able to withstand the terrifying howl. Fear involuntarily appeared on his face because he discovered that the balls of grayish-white light were filled with powerful soul fluctuations, and the terrifying howls were actually the howls of their souls. What kind of existence was this? What exactly was this tower? Although Long Houchin's heart was filled with questions, he dared not think too much at this moment, and could only focus on resisting the terrifying howl that he had never felt before. Long Houchin could conclude that if he had not comprehended the holy light barrier, he would not have been able to withstand it for even a minute, and would have been torn apart by the terrifying sound waves. In order to withstand this howl, under normal circumstances, one would probably need a Tier 7 cultivation base to be able to do so. This time, the howl seemed especially long to Long Houchin, and when it finally stopped, Long Houchin was shocked to find that more than half of his spiritual energy had disappeared. As the leader of the monster hunters, Long Houchin's first judgment was that this mission was not something that the two monster hunters could complete. Exploring the Terror Howl cave naturally included exploring the interior of this mysterious tower. But with their cultivation base, could they explore the interior? To be able to build such a tower deep underground, what kind of existence could do it? Even if it was not as powerful as the Demon Emperor, it had to be at least a Tier 9 powerhouse. He absolutely could not let his companions come here. Among the other 12, he was afraid that apart from Kair, who might be able to withstand the howl, the others would absolutely not be able to survive in this kind of terrifying sound waves. Retreat like this? Long Houchin was really unwilling after coming here with great difficulty. Was he going to retreat just like this? No matter what, he had to go into this tower and take a look. Taking a deep breath, Long Houchin mobilized the Saint's spiritual stove to recover his spiritual energy, and at the same time, he felt the blood contract connection between him and Hao Yue. The connection was still close, no problem at all. Yes, even when Hao Yue was in another plane, he could still contact him through the blood contract, and now it was only a matter of distance. When Long Houchin raised his head to look at the tower again, he discovered that the soul energy floating in the conical cave was completely scattered throughout the space and was slowly approaching the tower. From the looks of it, they would eventually stick to the tower, just like before. Then, the howl would once again appear. This process was constantly repeating itself. Probing, Long Houchin took a few steps forward. He was completely unable to determine whether or not these floating ash-gray souls would harm him, so he had to be careful. What made him somewhat despair was that the answer was yes. When Long Houchin had just taken his first step into the conical cave, the dozen or so soul energy nearby discovered his existence, and without the slightest hesitation, madly pounced towards him. As the distance closed, Long Houchin could clearly see that each and every one of those ash-gray soul energy unexpectedly had a malevolent face. Although they were condensed from soul energy, they appeared even more malevolent. The first group of wraiths fiercely collided with Long Houchin's holy light cover. Long Houchin had already prepared to deal with it. Soul energy was also a form of energy, and these wraiths brimming with the aura of death should be restrained by his own light attribute, so he wasn't too worried. However, the moment the wraiths truly collided with the holy light cover, Long Houchin was gobsmacked. Boom! The holy light cover instantly exploded, and Long Houchin only felt as if his brain had been smashed by a heavy hammer. A terrifying energy brimming with death and coldness directly drilled into the depths of his soul, as if it was actually trying to seize his body. The evil, icy soul energy was abnormally strong, to the point that Long Houchin's mind momentarily blanked out under its impact. Even the light elemental spirit Yiting was actually suppressed within Long Houchin's body. Facing these powerful wraiths, she could only tremble. His mind was completely blank, and Long Houchin couldn't even communicate with Hao Yue's ability to teleport. The power of these wraiths was simply too terrifying. It was only one of the hundreds and thousands of wraiths, but it was this seemingly inconspicuous little wraiths that caused Long Houchin to not even have the chance to escape. At this extremely critical juncture, a purple glow suddenly appeared in Long Houchin's eyes, and the 9 purple runes of light on his forehead appeared once more. A hazy purple halo rippled out from Long Houchin's body. Whether it was the wraiths that had first collided with Long Houchin or the dozen or so other wraiths that followed, under the impact of this purple glow, all of them let out shrill screams and flew away as if they were fleeing. The purple light projected in front of Long Houchin, and Hao Yue's enormous body appeared, shielding Long Houchin behind it. A rich purple glow continuously spread from its body, and little light, little fire, and little blues, 3 heads, and 6 eyes all turned purple. The wraiths that had been so powerful that Long Houchin couldn't resist at all seemed to be extremely afraid of the purple halo released by Hao Yue. With a series of sharp screams, they all fled as fast as they could, and even the wraiths that were slightly further away didn't dare to rush forward. This was not the first time that Hao Yue had released this purple glow. Long Houchin had seen it, but only this time did he feel it the most clearly. The power of the soul. That was the power that belonged to Hao Yue's soul. Seeing that the wraiths didn't dare to come forward, Long Houchin couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. In that moment, he really felt as if his body was about to be stripped away. Hao Yue and Long Houchin were telepathically connected. With its guidance, Long Houchin's figure flashed, and he landed on Hao Yue's back. Being together with it, Long Houchin immediately felt at ease. Hao Yue, let's go back. Long Houchin reluctantly looked at the huge grayish-white tower. Hao Yue's three heads turned to look at Long Houchin. To Long Houchin's surprise, their purple eyes were actually flashing with excitement. The three heads shook at Long Houchin at the same time. Hao Yue's thoughts were transmitted, telling Long Houchin that there wouldn't be any danger here for the time being. Although there would be danger inside the tower, it wouldn't erupt directly. They could still deal with it for the time being. It suggested that Long Houchin enter the first floor of the tower to take a look. Long Houchin was originally a little unwilling, but Hao Yue's suggestion immediately reignited his hope. At least from the current situation, Hao Yue could restrain the wraiths outside the tower. It shouldn't be too dangerous to just take a look at the situation inside the tower, right? All right, then let's go and take a look. Roar, roar, roar. Three angry roars came from Hao Yue's three heads at the same time. Its four hooves were moving, and its thick body carried Long Houchin straight towards the tower. Under the deterrence of the purple soul radiance released by Hao Yue, a large number of wraiths that were scattered in the air quickly dispersed. None of them dared to come into contact with it. Hao Yue held its head high, and it seemed to have a domineering aura. The distance of a few hundred meters was covered by Hao Yue in the blink of an eye. Long Houchin couldn't see the main entrance of the tower from where he was previously at the crack. They went around to the side, and a 3-meter-tall door appeared in front of them. The first feeling that came to Long Houchin when he saw the door was that this tower was built by humans. The door was grayish-white in color, and there weren't any gorgeous carvings or patterns. This alone didn't match the ruins of the High Elves. Moreover, there was a thick stone slab above the door. There were 5 ancient words on it. These words were very similar to the words used by humans now, but the structure of the words was more complicated. Long Houchin could vaguely make out the words written on it: eternal sleep. Although the door was very simple and not tall, it gave off a majestic aura when standing in front of it. It was as if there was a towering mountain standing proudly. Hao Yue's 3 heads and 6 eyes shone with a dazzling brilliance. It moved to the side, but didn't go straight towards the door. Instead, it ran to the side of the door and spat out a whirlwind that swept towards the door. The moment it spat out the green light, Hao Yue suddenly moved horizontally and stuck close to the side of the tower, completely avoiding the front of the door. Puff! The opening of the door wasn't difficult at all. On the contrary, it opened quietly under the push of the wind element. However, as soon as it was opened, a dense black-gray air current swept out from the tower. It was an extremely pure energy, but it was an energy that no living creature would want to come into contact with because it was filled with the purity of the aura of death. The vengeful spirits that were gradually approaching the tower seemed to have discovered the most terrifying thing. They frantically fled in all directions, and a shrill howl that shouldn't have appeared at this time suddenly erupted. Long Houchin hurriedly released a holy light shield to cover himself and Hao Yue, and resisted the terrifying sound waves brought by the shrill howl with all his might. After the grayish-black air current surged out of the tower, it quickly spread in the air. As soon as dozens of vengeful spirits that were closer to the tower came into contact with it, they immediately turned into a grayish-white air current and surged towards the tower, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Clearly, the pure aura of death couldn't resist the vengeful spirits at all. On the other hand, The aura of the tower itself was irresistible to them. Just as Long Haochen's brain was working quickly to determine the situation around him, Hao Yue had already moved again. In a flash, he had entered the tower. A strange scene appeared. As soon as Hao Yue stepped into the tower, the shrill howl outside stopped abruptly and could no longer affect Long Haochen. However, what followed was an indescribable silence that could be felt from every pore on Long Haochen's body. A spacious hall appeared in front of him. It wasn't as dark as he had imagined, but was completely grayish-white. Moreover, it was much wider than the tower that he had seen from the outside. All 48 pillars supported the dome that was close to 30 meters tall. All the grayish-white was slightly distorted, so much so that Long Haochen couldn't see the actual situation inside. The 48 pillars stood proudly on both sides of the hall, but he couldn't see what was inside. The purple spiritual aura on Hao Yue's body was quickly withdrawn. He appeared very cautious as he slowly walked forward. Long Haochen's palms were sweating as he held the Holy Spirit's sword and shield. After entering this world that was filled with the aura of death, he felt a great change in his body. Firstly, the recovery speed of his spiritual power was actually a few times faster than when he was outside the tower. This meant that the elemental energy in this tower was much more abundant than the outside world. At the same time, the light elemental spirit Yiting didn't dare to appear outside of Long Haochen's body again, as if there was something extremely terrifying here. Welcome to the Tower of Eternity. Just as Long Haochen was determining the situation inside the tower, an old voice suddenly sounded without warning. Long Haochen instantly shivered, and Hao Yue also stopped in his tracks. The voice came from all directions. Being able to enter the Tower of Eternity, where I sleep, proves that you are an excellent necromancer, and your strength should have reached at least the 6th level. Child, you are very lucky to be able to come to the world that belongs to us necromancers. The Tower of Eternity is the crystallization of my 1,000 years of life. As long as you move forward, pass all the tests, and finally reach the top, you will completely inherit my mantle. The necromancers will reappear in the world, and let those hypocrites of the glorious church rest in death. Move forward bravely, my child. You are the first necromancer to enter the Tower of Eternity, and you will also be my only successor. What you will face are dangers and tests, but there will be no threat to your life. Of course, this is based on the premise that you can pass the first test. Otherwise, you are not qualified to inherit my mantle. As long as you can pass the test, this path will always be open for you. I will also always protect you by your side, until the moment you truly appear in front of me. What you're hearing now is my final words before my eternal rest. When you leave this place, the Tower of Eternity will close because of you, and will automatically be transported to the independent plane that I have opened. Only you, who have my token, can enter. I will be at the top of the tower, waiting for your arrival, to receive the inheritance of the holy law of necromancy, sleeping calamity Electrolux. Outside the cave of Fear Howl, staring at the place where Hao Yue had disappeared, the two members of the monster hunters couldn't help but panic. Lin Xian said in surprise, "Why is it not Haochen who returned, but Hao Yue who disappeared?" Her words also asked the question in everyone's mind. Ever since entering the territory of the demons, Long Haochen was the backbone of the entire team. When he was around, the group didn't feel particularly strong, but the moment Hao Yue disappeared, the young elites of the Temple League began to panic. Lin Xian frowned. Haochen said that he can teleport back to Hao Yue's side when he is in danger, but now it is Hao Yue who teleported over. There is only one explanation. He is in danger, and it is a danger that doesn't even have the opportunity to teleport. No, we have to immediately support the leader. As he spoke, he was about to walk out of the cavern. Not only him, but Wang Yuanyuan, Sima Xian, and the others also had the same reaction. But at this moment, a figure blocked the exit of the cavern that they had temporarily opened. "Don't panic. No one is allowed to go out." Kai, Er's cold voice sounded, causing everyone to be stunned. If it was another person who made such a move, I am afraid that they would first be besieged by the members of the 21st General Level Monster Hunters, But this person is Kai, which is completely different. Who is Kai? She is Long Haochen's confidant. Long Haochen is in danger. How can she not be anxious? Kai calmly looked at the anxious people and said in a deep voice, "From now on, I will temporarily take over the position of leader Haochen. Before he comes back, all actions will be under my command. Who has any objections?" Lu Shi said in a deep voice, "Kai, now is not a question of who is in command, but Haochen's safety. Shouldn't we go and rescue him?" Along the way, he was truly convinced by Long Haochen, and he is also very clear that if there is one person in the team who can lead everyone back safely, then this person can naturally be Long Haochen. Kai coldly glanced at him. "I am not panicking. Why are you panicking? There is a blood contract between Haochen and Hao Yue. This contract makes them as one. Even if Haochen loses the ability to teleport back, once he feels that he is in danger, Hao Yue can forcibly teleport him back. But Hao Yue did not do so, but instead took the initiative to teleport to his side. What does this mean? It means that Hao Yue believes that the danger Haochen is in is within its control, and it can help Hao Yue resolve the danger. What's more, Haochen has already been gone for a few hours, and the whistling sound just now suddenly became irregular. This means that he has reached the core position of this fearful howling cave. He took so long to arrive. How long will it take for us to get to his side? If something happens to us on the way, when he comes back, won't he be even more anxious? What we need to do now is to eliminate all of his worries and not to throw him into confusion. So, continue to rest here and wait for him to come back. Since he is our leader, we must have absolute trust in him. I believe that he will be able to return safely." It can be said that Kai Er's words immediately calmed the entire team down. All along, Long Haochen has been the leader of the entire team, the team's core, and also the team's brain. At this moment, in the absence of him, Kerr, who understands him the most, stood up. Compared to Long Haochen, she is more dignified, more unquestionable. However, her cold voice gave people a feeling that it is a matter of course. As the possessors of top-notch innate gifts, whether it was Long Haochen or Kerr, they both had an innate ability to dominate others. It was just that Kai had always been willing to serve as Long Haochen's foil. Lu Shi's gaze suddenly fell on Sima Xian, his eyes revealing sincere envy. At this moment, there's only one thought in his mind. How good would it be if he could be the priest of this dual-core monster hunters? Necromancer? When hearing these words, Long Haochen's heart was incomparably shocked. This profession has probably not appeared in the Holy Demon Continent for tens of thousands of years. At the same time, these words also evoked his memories. It is a soul-stirring story told by his father. 13,000 years ago, humans entered the glorious era from the ancient times and ushered in a period of rapid development for 7,000 years. It is precisely these 7,000 years that established the ruling position of humans in the Holy Demon Continent. At that time, humans have 3 countries, each of which is incomparably powerful, even surpassing the current Temple League, with countless powerhouses. However, why after 700 years, when the 72 demon pillars descended, humans lacked the ability to resist, almost being exterminated by the demons, and entered the Dark Age? Long Xingwu told Long Haochen that it is because of a catastrophe during the glorious era. And the main culprit of that catastrophe is the Necromancer. This catastrophe caused great damage to the vitality of the 3 human empires, and even caused the inheritance of countless powerhouses to be severed. This caused the human resistance to be greatly weakened after the demon god descended, and finally, after retreating to the current Temple League, they gradually stabilized. It has been nearly 10,000 years since that catastrophe. The Necromancer is a profession that deals with death. They're not dark mages. They obtain powerful abilities through communicating with the undead. At that time, apart from the royal families of the 3 empires, the most important one in the human world was the brilliant Vatican mentioned in the voice just now. The 3 empires ruled over humans, while the brilliant Vatican ruled over the powerhouses. It can be said that most of the powerhouses were under the rule of the brilliant Vatican, and even the name of the brilliant era came from the brilliant Vatican. One can imagine how powerful the brilliant Vatican was at that time. No one knows how the war between the necromancer and the brilliant Vatican started. But even now, after 10,000 years, the tragedy of that war left a deep impression. It can be said that the strength that the necromancer displayed at that time is not weaker than the 72 demon god pillars. However, humans at that time are far from being comparable to the current humans. In the end, humans obtained victory, exterminating the necromancer to the point that after 10,000 years, there is no news of the necromancer appearing again. However, humans also paid an extremely heavy price. The Pope of the brilliant Vatican fell in the end, and even his inheritance was broken. More than 90% of the powerhouses of the brilliant Vatican perished in that holy war. The last war was between the Pope of the brilliant Vatican and the leader of the necromancers. In that war, they even opened up a dimensional battlefield to prevent the human world from collapsing completely. No one knows the final outcome, but after that war, the Pope and the leader of the necromancers never appeared again. Without a leader, the remaining necromancers lost the holy war in the end. However, the disaster that they brought to humans was that the human population was reduced by half, countless powerhouses perished, and the inheritance of the brilliant era was broken. From then on, humans entered the late period of their brilliant era until the Dark Age descended. It can be said that without the disaster brought by the necromancers, when the 72 demon god pillars descended, they may not have been able to gain a foothold in the holy demon continent. If the brilliant Vatican still had the strength, how could the demons become so powerful? Unfortunately, no if can change the truth. The glory of humans eventually declined because of the necromancers and the 72 demon god pillars. However, human civilization still fought tenaciously. At least for now, it was not easy for the 72 demon god pillars to completely destroy the Temple League. After nearly 10,000 years of decline, humans finally rose gradually. The Son of the Light, Long Hao-Chen, and the Saint of Reincarnation, Kair, were the humans who came into being. Long Hao-Chen gradually woke up from his memories, but his golden eyes were still filled with shock. This tower was actually a civilization left behind by the necromancers. How shocking was this news? Back then, after the glorious church obtained the final victory in the Holy War, they set off a wave of destruction across the entire continent. It lasted for hundreds of years. All the inheritance, information, and records of the necromancers were completely erased in the process. As a result, there were only a few people who knew the title of necromancers. The Holy Law of Necromancers, Eternal Sleep Calamity, Electrolux. What a terrifying and domineering name. Long Hao-Chen was almost sure that the owner of the Eternal Sleep Tower must have played an important role in the Holy War. Even if he was not the leader of the necromancers who perished together with the leader of the brilliant Vatican, he must have been one of the commanders. Who would have thought that the inheritance of such a powerful necromancer would be preserved? If this news were to spread to the Temple League, it might cause a panic. Calm down, I must calm down now. Long Hao-Chen constantly warned himself, gradually calming his surging emotions. His memory was very good, especially when he was nervous, and his memory would double. The voice from before was firmly remembered in his mind. Now that he thought about it carefully, he suddenly realized many things from the voice that was preserved here. First of all, this tower should be a remnant of the glorious era 10,000 years ago, and it could be said to be the crystallization of the necromancer's wisdom of that era. After the necromancers lost the Holy War, this eternal sleep tower was buried deep underground, and no one had ever discovered it. It was only when the Earth's crust shifted and a crack connected to the outside world appeared that Long Hao-Chen found this place. After 10,000 years, not only did this tower not suffer any damage, but it also maintained a strong death energy. The vengeful spirits outside were obviously left here by the owner of this tower using special methods. And in the owner's opinion, only the necromancer could pass through these vengeful spirits and finally inherit his legacy. and how Yue's existence used his strong soul aura to intimidate the vengeful spirits and brought him here. All of this could be described as a freak combination of factors. As the son of light, of course, Long Haochen could not inherit the necromancer's legacy. However, when the voice sounded, the door behind him had already closed. With the owner's wisdom and strength, it was obviously impossible for him to break through the door. So, in order to leave this place alive, Long Haochen had to pass the first level test and obtain the token of Eternal Sleep Disaster Electrolux. Moreover, from the words left behind by Eternal Sleep Disaster Electrolux, it was not difficult to find out that this powerful necromancer believed that only necromancers who had reached the 6th level could come here. In other words, the first level of the tower's test was prepared for the 6th level necromancers. After thinking through these key points, Long Haochen couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. There was no doubt that the first level's test was not simple. To him, whether he could leave this place alive was still an unknown. Now, he could only fight with all his might to get out of this place. Just as he was thinking about how to face the unknown danger in front of him, Eternal Sleep Disaster Electrolux's voice sounded again. This time, it made Long Haochen feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Then, let me test your attributes to see what kind of necromancer you are. Test attributes? Oh no. Long Haochen's mind instantly went blank. In his mind, necromancers should be the extension of darkness. No matter which attribute it was definitely not light. My attributes are about to be exposed. With the power of Eternal Sleep Disaster, what will I face? Hao Yue, break through the door. Long Haochen instantly issued an order to Hao Yue in his mind. Although the chance of returning the way they came was slim, perhaps this was the only way to survive. However, just as Long Haochen issued this order, Hao Yue's body suddenly shook violently. The unprepared Long Haochen was suddenly thrown into the air, and Hao Yue himself quickly retreated a few steps, avoiding his original position. Hao Yue actually gave up on me? Impossible. Long Haochen's entire person was in a state of incomprehensible shock. It was also at this time a grayish-white light fell from the sky, accurately enveloping his body. The grayish-white light was filled with an irresistible and terrifying aura. Long Haochen only felt his whole body go cold. The indescribable aura of death instantly made the blood in his body feel like it was about to freeze. All the liquid light attribute spiritual power was completely suppressed back into the saint's spiritual stove. He couldn't even move his little finger. Despair, this kind of emotion appeared in Long Haochen's heart for the first time. Even when he was facing the 3 great demon gods, he still had the courage to resist, but now he couldn't do anything. Am I really going to stay here forever? Become a part of those vengeful spirits? Under the illumination of the grayish-white light, Long Haochen slowly fell back from the position that Hao Yue had shaken him, once again landing on the ground with his feet firmly planted on the ground. What gave him a glimmer of hope was that the attack he had imagined did not come. The white light and the feeling it gave Long Haochen disappeared just like that. Is this true? Will my message really be activated? If it really is like this, then I really am too happy. It seems that the hateful heavens haven't completely abandoned me. My dear disciple, I think I can already call you like this. I will absolutely not allow you to fall before becoming my successor, because you are my most ideal disciple, a holy necromancer with the same light attribute as me. Haha, this will be a perfect inheritance. God's favor, it's actually the light of God's favor, haha. Chapter 81. What? Long Haochen cried out in alarm. His entire consciousness had unexpectedly sunk into a complete blank at this moment. Holy Necromancer? No wonder Electrolux called him Holy Necromancer and not Necromancer. The word holy was actually the word holy, representing the divinity of light. It turned out that necromancers could also be of the light attribute. How is this possible? Could it be that necromancers weren't supposed to deal with corpses and death, evil existences that walked in the shadows? It could be said that Electrolux's last sentence shocked Long Haochen more than anything before. This was a complete subversion of his understanding. the grayish-white light reappeared, but this time it was only a small ball. It quietly appeared in front of Long Houchin, floating there. It was a necklace. The necklace itself was made of white, transparent gems the size of soybeans. The gems emitted a faint white fluorescence, and the gentle aura of light gave people a kind of warmth that came from the heart. The space that was originally filled with the aura of death was almost completely filled with light because of its appearance. The dense and somewhat viscous light elements almost instantly made Long Houchin use the saint's spiritual stove to replenish all of the spiritual power he had previously consumed. There was a small pendant on the necklace, about the size of a fingernail. It was also white and had the appearance of a small skull. In the place where its eyes should be, there was a pulsating golden flame. The viscous light elements were spreading out with it as the center. My dear disciple, this is my keepsake. Fortunately, you are not one of those dirty, dark necromancers. Otherwise, I would have no choice but to give up on you. This necklace has been with me for 896 years, until the moment I fell into a deep slumber. Oh, you must remember not to let anyone from the glorious church see it, because it was made from a skull of the first glorious church's pontiff. Now that I think about those swindlers' faces after knowing that the holy tomb of the first pope was dug up by me, I feel incomparably excited. The name of this necklace is Eternal Melody. It is my keepsake, and also the key to opening the eternal sleep. If you have companions that you can absolutely trust in the future, you can bring them here to train. Of course, the prerequisite is that there can't be the dirtiest and most detestable darkness-type possessor among them. You brought them here, and if anyone harbors ill intentions towards you, the eternal slumber will make them sleep forever. From now on, you are my successor, the new master of the eternal slumber. Long Houchin did not have the ability to refuse. As soon as he finished speaking, the extremely warm light elements poured into his body like liquid. The Eternal Melody necklace quietly appeared around his neck, the transparent crystal head of the necklace hanging right on his chest. Immediately, Long Houchin felt his entire body warm up, as if he was soaking in warm water. His entire body immediately turned bright golden. It was as if he had entered the body of light state. Rich light elements flooded every corner of his body, constantly nourishing it. Blue rain, hibiscus of light, saint's spiritual stove, and even the light elemental sprite Yuting were all happily moaning in his chest. His liquid internal spiritual power was growing at a speed that was almost visible to the naked eye. It increased by at least 500 points before the growth rate slowed down. That skull pendant brimming with divine aura was also tightly attached to the center of Long Houchin's chest. Move on, child. From now on, everything here is yours. Even if there are no tests, you can still leave this place at any time. I look forward to seeing you in front of me as soon as possible. After saying this last sentence, the eternal slumber calamity Electrolux's voice completely faded. Although the surroundings were still covered in a grayish-white aura of death, Long Houchin, who was wearing the Eternal Melody, was like a sun here. His body unceasingly emitted dense golden rays of light. What was even more strange was that this light and the aura of death in this place were incomparably harmonious. There was not the slightest bit of conflict. The tower door behind Long Houchin quietly opened. This meant that he did not need to pass any tests and could leave this place at any time. At this moment, he stood there motionless. This was because a large amount of information was rapidly flowing into his mind, becoming a part of his memory. And the source of this information was the Eternal Melody. This information included the most basic control of the eternal slumber. A lot of this information was still sealed by the Eternal Melody necklace. But even more was the eternal slumber calamity Electrolux's understanding and training method of necromancy magic. This part of the information was really too much. More importantly, no matter how much Long Houchin did not want to become a necromancer, this information was still deeply imprinted in the depths of his soul. He could never forget it. Haoyue crouched behind Long Houchin and looked at him quietly. His 3 heads and 6 eyes emitted a gentle glow. Occasionally, he would glance towards the depths of the hall on the first floor. His pupils would reveal a look of reminiscence, but there was also a hint of confusion in his reminiscence. Standing there, Long Haochen gradually woke up after a full hour. The huge amount of information that flowed into his mind had already been imprinted in the depths of his memory. At this moment, Long Haochen's expression was not good. Even if the eternal slumber calamity Electrolux was a necromancer of the light attribute, he was still a necromancer. He was one of the main culprits that caused the catastrophe of the human race 10,000 years ago. How would Long Haochen be willing to become his successor? Even more so, he would not be willing to learn any necromancy magic. Turning around abruptly, Long Haochen looked at Hao Yue with a burning gaze. Hao Yue, you already knew what this place was for, didn't you? Long Haochen was really a little angry. If Hao Yue had told him everything that happened here beforehand, he would not have chosen to enter at all. Even though the eternal melody had given him a great boost in strength, he was not willing to accept all of this. After wearing the eternal melody, he could not take it off at all. Woo-woo. Hao Yue's 3 heads and 6 eyes were filled with innocence. He blinked his eyes and transmitted the information to Long Haochen one by one. Long Haochen's expression gradually changed from anger to astonishment when he felt the information it transmitted. Great prophecy spell? Your innate skill? Long Haochen's face was filled with disbelief as he stared at Hao Yue. Hao Yue actually told him that he possessed the ability of the great prophecy spell. To a certain extent, he could predict certain things that would happen in the future. Entering this castle came from his prophecy. However, he could not feel it clearly. He could only feel that this place would bring opportunities to Long Haochen without any danger. That was why he insisted on letting Long Haochen enter this place. With a bitter smile, Long Haochen walked in front of Hao Yue and hugged Light's big head. I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't have doubted you. It's just that the impact of everything that happened just now was too great. I actually became the chosen successor of a necromancer. This is really... Light, Fire and Green snuggled up to him and gently stroked his body. Hao Yue, what do you think I should do? Let's just leave and pretend that this never happened, all right? Anyway, after I leave, this Tower of Eternity will also enter another parallel plane. Hao Yue's 3 heads nodded and shook. Long Haochen asked doubtfully, You're saying that this is also an opportunity. It's not necessary to learn necromancy. It's also good to gain experience here. Hao Yue nodded. Long Haochen frowned and fell into deep thought. It could be said that he was struggling internally. The Tower of Eternity had a great impact on him. Especially the necromancy was imprinted in his memory. No matter how unwilling he was, he could not get rid of these memories. The melody of eternity would always be around his neck, benefiting him. Long Haochen was never a greedy person. On the contrary, if others treated him well, he would repay them tenfold. No matter how unwilling he was, the truth was that he had indeed benefited from the eternal slumber Electrolux, and it was a benefit that he could not get rid of. This was what made him most uncomfortable. After a while, Long Haochen slowly raised his head and sighed. Perhaps you're right. Perhaps you're right, but I can't make the decision. Whether I want to use this place to gain experience depends on my companion's opinions. However, we should try to find out what the test here is. At least we have to ensure that if my companions really come here with me, they can leave safely. A layer of hazy golden light shot out from his chest under Long Haochen's guidance and landed on Hao Yue's body. It immediately added a layer of golden luster to his best companion's body. Hao Yue looked like even his scales had turned golden. This was the effect of the melody of eternity. According to the memory it brought to Long Haochen, if he wanted to gain experience here and not become an enemy of the Tower of Eternity, he had to be contaminated by the aura of the melody of eternity. Turning around, Long Haochen put away the Holy Spirit shield in his left hand and summoned blue rain and hibiscus of light from within his body. The moment blue rain and hibiscus of light appeared, Long Haochen was stunned. This was because he suddenly realized that his strongest attack weapon had undergone some strange changes. Its body was still the same as before, but the light emitted from it had changed. Holding blue rain and hibiscus of light in his palm, it immediately gave Long Hao-Chen a feeling of moisture all over his body. His body was moisturized and filled with a sense of comfort. The body of the sword emitted a layer of golden luster. To be precise, it should be a golden mist. It was somewhat ethereal, but filled with the aura of light and water. This golden mist permeated a radius of 1 foot around the blade. It was exceptionally strange. The moment Long Hao-Chen poured his spiritual power into it, the golden mist instantly condensed and formed a golden sword light that was 3 feet long in front of the blade. Evolved? Long Hao-Chen still clearly remembered that the Temple Master of the Knights Templars, the leader of the Holy Alliance, Yang Haoan, had once said that the greatest characteristic of blue rain and hibiscus of light was that they could evolve. Could it be that in these few short months, under the nourishment of the saint's spiritual stove, it had already completed an evolution? Looking at the light elemental fluctuations emitted by blue rain and hibiscus of light, Long Hao-Chen could be completely sure that this strange longsword was at least a glory-level weapon. It might even be higher. Compared to the Holy Spirit sword in his right hand that was only emitting a faint white light, Long Hao-Chen almost subconsciously switched the heavy swords in his hands, holding blue rain and hibiscus of light in his right hand. This action also meant that he had chosen to give up the use of the Holy Spirit set. From now on, blue rain and hibiscus of light would become his main weapons. At most, he would only use the Holy Spirit's sword to coordinate with them. The reason for this choice was obviously because the effects of blue rain and hibiscus of light had already surpassed the Holy Spirit set as a whole. The eternal melody brought many memories to Long Hao-Chen, but as for how to train in the Tower of Eternity, there was only one instruction: forward. Not riding on Haoyue, Long Hao-Chen walked in front with the heavy sword in his hands. Every step he took was not fast, his whole body and mind feeling the danger that could appear at any time. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Just when he took the 4th step forward from the position where he obtained the eternal melody, Long Hao-Chen's footsteps suddenly stopped. Holding the heavy sword in his hands, he vigilantly looked ahead. 2 white lights, without warning, shone 5 meters in front of him. Immediately, 2 huge silhouettes emerged from the ground. They were 2 huge skeletons surrounded by white light, filled with the aura of death and light at the same time. The 2 human-shaped skeletons were about 5 meters tall, their bones were white, and there were 3 golden halos under their feet. They were actually the Faith Halo, Power Halo, and Courage Halo that Long Hao-Chen was most familiar with. The bone shield in his left hand, the bone blade in his right, and the position of his eyes was burning with the same golden flame as the eternal melody. However, this flame was not as pure as the eternal melody. Boom, boom, boom. Taking heavy steps, the 2 huge skeletons directly pounced on Long Hao-Chen. A sharp and oppressive aura erupted in an instant. They were actually using a charging skill similar to that of humans. Long Hao-Chen used the 9 dragon steps and quickly leaped to the left. In this way, at least he would not have to face the attacks of the skeletons from 2 directions at the same time. Holding the Holy Spirit sword in his left hand horizontally, he used the divine defense to block. Clang! Amidst the intense roar, Long Hao-Chen, who was in the state of the divine defense, was actually pushed back more than 3 steps before he could barely stand. So strong. Although Long Hao-Chen did not know what level his internal spiritual energy had reached, he could roughly judge that after obtaining the eternal melody, his internal spiritual energy had already increased to more than 3,500. In this kind of situation, he was still pushed back by this skeleton. This skeleton's strength was at least equivalent to 7,000 or 8,000 internal spiritual energy. This was the first test given to him by the Tower of Eternity. The other skeleton didn't pincer attack Long Hao-Chen. Instead, it directly pounced towards Haoyue. In a moment, it was about to reach Haoyue. A white light flashed, and the skeleton was forcibly attracted. Just when it was 1 meter away from Haoyue, it turned around and pounced on Long Hao-Chen. It was the saint's spiritual stove. From beginning to end, Hao Yue acted as if he did not see it. All three heads were chanting their own incantations. This was the tacit understanding and trust between it and Long Haochen. Clang! Another collision sound rang out. This time, it was Long Haochen who launched an attack. The Saint's spiritual sword blocked the opponent's blade. His blue rain and hibiscus of light also slashed at the skeleton with the help of the light's vengeance. The skeleton held the bone shield in its left hand horizontally, blocking in front of the blue rain and hibiscus of light, making a strong collision sound. The evolved blue rain and hibiscus of light were indeed extraordinary. The golden light streaked across, leaving an inch-deep mark on the bone shield. Charging forward, Long Haochen suddenly accelerated to the side, dodging the skeleton's attack attracted by the Saint's spiritual stove. His figure turned around, and a light-severing sword slashed out horizontally. Immediately, the blue rain and hibiscus of light blazed with golden light. The swift and fierce sword chi accompanied the light-severing sword simultaneously erupted. However, this clearly could not scare the two skeletons. They both held their shields horizontally in front of their bodies. Unexpectedly, each of them also released a holy light infusion shield skill. They welcomed the light-severing sword and rushed towards Long Haochen. At this time, Hao Yue's magic was finally completed. An enlarged version of the wind blade, fireball, and light-severing sword simultaneously bombarded the skeleton's right knee joint. Moreover, the skeleton he chose was precisely the one attracted by Long Haochen's Saint's spiritual stove. These two light-attributed skeletons were more difficult to deal with than Long Haochen had imagined. The skeleton that had been targeted by Hao Yue's magic unexpectedly had an extremely strong perception. It suddenly crouched down and then used its bone shield to block in front of its body. After 3 rumbling sounds, Long Haochen was shocked to see that the skeleton's body unexpectedly released a golden light. It was actually the light's vengeance. In other words, it relied on the divine defense to block Hao Yue's attack. The other skeleton also caught up with Long Haochen in its extreme speed. The pure white bone blade glittered with a divine radiance. It was actually a holy sword. It directly chopped down towards Long Haochen's head. Facing this degree of spiritual power suppression, Long Haochen did not dare to use the battle-killing revolving sword. This was because this skeleton could completely rely on its spiritual power to shake him away. Buzz! A large canopy of light was suddenly released from the blue rain and hibiscus of light. Long Haochen moved horizontally to block. It was still the divine defense block. Boom! Facing this skeleton's attack, Long Haochen unexpectedly forcibly blocked it. Moreover, this time, he unexpectedly did not retreat in the slightest. Moreover, on the bone blade in the skeleton's hand, there was impressively a gap of about an inch. The bone blade wasn't shaken away, but instead slid to the side along the blue rain and hibiscus of light. It fiercely bombarded the ground. It was unknown what kind of material the ground was made of. Facing such a powerful skeleton's holy sword, it unexpectedly only burst out sparks, without the slightest sign of damage. A resonant dragon cry burst out from Long Haochen's body. With the blue rain, hibiscus of light, and the Holy Spirit sword as the lead, the Punishment Knight's rank 5 attack skill, Rising Dragon Strike, erupted. There was even a strange, buzzing sound amidst the dragon's roar. At this moment, the skeleton was in a disadvantageous position. The bone blade slashed on the ground and was affected by the impact of the impact. Long Haochen's attack could be said to be launched at the perfect time. In a hurry, the skeleton could only use the bone shield in its hand to block Long Haochen's attack. Amid the ear-piercing roar, this time, the skeleton was actually ruthlessly knocked away by Long Haochen. It rolled on the ground, and when it stood up again, the bone shield in its hand had already been broken by more than half. For Long Haochen, the most important thing about this attack was that it strengthened his confidence. There is only one reason why he could block the opponent's powerful attack and destroy the bone shield: Ripple of Light. When Divine Block was added to the elemental shock wave of Ripple of Light, not only did the defense greatly increase, but it also had the effect of reducing the force. Therefore, the skeleton's holy sword was unable to fully affect the blue rain and hibiscus of light. Even Long Houchen himself did not expect that the combination of blue rain, hibiscus of light, and ripple of light would actually become so sharp. Although the skeleton's combat strength was strong, it was clearly not good at defense. It was just like when he did not have suitable equipment. The other skeleton did not appear in front of Long Houchen to block the subsequent attacks from Long Houchen for its companion, because after the 3 spells were blocked, Long Houchen also launched a series of attacks. Its huge body leaped forward, and 3 not very strong, but extremely practical spells burst out from its body at the same time. The fire element's resistant ring of fire, the light element's ripple of light, and the wind element's wild wind dance. These 3 spells only had one function, and that was to impact. Even if the skeleton had divine block, the knight's ultimate weapon, under the effect of the 3 impact spells, it was still knocked a few steps to the side. And just these few steps gave Long Houchen enough time. The intense sun's fire rose from blue rain and hibiscus of light almost instantly. The high-frequency oscillation of ripple of light made the sun's fire exude a hazy sense of beauty. Assault. Glorious Sun Slash. There was no doubt that the power of the glorious Sun Slash was not comparable to the Holy Sword, but it was superior in that it did not require the accumulation of incantations like the Holy Sword. With Long Houchen's current cultivation base, he could completely cast this skill instantaneously. The combination of skills was very mysterious. For example, the glorious Sun Slash with the sun's fire. Not every punishment knight had this kind of knowledge, but Long Houchen was the son of the Judgment and Judgment Knight of the Seal, Long Xingwu. 2 huge balls of blazing sun shone, and Long Houchen's 2 swords even disappeared at this moment. The dim light of the sun's fire completely condensed on the 2 balls of blazing sun, and the blazing aura of light instantly skyrocketed. At this time, the gap brought about by the equipment could be seen. Both were using the sun's fire and the glorious Sun Slash, but the blazing sun formed by the Holy Spirit Sword was more than half the size of the blazing sun formed by blue rain and hibiscus of light. Roar! The skeleton did not resign itself to death. With an angry roar, the golden flames in its eyes suddenly intensified, causing a layer of pale, golden flames to rise from its body. It actually gave up the bone shield in its left hand, held the sword with both hands, and made a slashing motion. In an instant, the air around the skeleton's body seemed to quickly gather towards it, even creating a certain pulling force on Long Houchen. The terrifying sword slashed the condensed air apart, making a shrill whistle. The bone sword in its hand had completely turned bright gold, and the power of this attack gave Long Houchen a feeling that it was almost impossible to block. This attack gave Long Houchen the feeling that it was splitting the heavens and the earth. The most terrifying thing was not its attack power, but the pressure it brought, forcing Long Houchen to have no choice but to face it head-on. The 2 balls of blazing sun crossed in the air, and spiritual power was fully released. The glorious Sun Slash turned into a cross slash, and, at the same time, it met the bone sword. The roar was accompanied by a burst of golden light like fireworks, and in an instant, it illuminated the surrounding area of hundreds of square meters. Long Houchen's entire body flew backwards, and blue rain and hibiscus of light in his hands buzzed like a dragon's roar. At the same time, his body also shone with a golden light. The life-sharing effect of the soul chain was activated, and his companions who were far away on the mountainside shared the damage for him. The power of the skeleton's attack was too terrifying. It must be known that Long Houchen's attack included 4 skills: Ripple of Light, Glorious Sun Slash, Fire of the Sun, and Cross Slash. His spiritual power was also fully released, and there was also the effect of blue rain and hibiscus of light. With such a powerful attack, he was actually forcibly sent flying. This was when he had the upper hand, and the skeleton's slash did not display its full power. Long Houchen was completely sure that if he had not first used blue rain and hibiscus of light to meet the skeleton's attack, and the skeleton's bone sword was not considered a weapon at all. He was afraid that this attack would have cut him in half. If it had been the Holy Spirit's sword in front of him, it would definitely have broken. The web between his thumb and forefinger had been torn, his arms were sore, and his chest was stuffy. This skeleton was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. It seemed that not only had its spiritual power reached rank 6, but even its skills were the same. Apart from not being able to fly, this skeleton was simply like a rank 6 Radiance Knight. However, although the skeleton had sent Long Hao-Chen flying with one slash, it did not feel good either. The bone sword, which was not very solid, had already been broken into pieces. Long Hao-Chen's blue rain and hibiscus of light had left a deep mark on its chest, and the blazing fire of the sun was burning its body, which could be considered as a serious injury to the skeleton. This was just one skeleton. What about the other one? Long Hao-Chen barely stood up and adjusted the spiritual power in his body. His gaze swept to Hao Yue's side. When he looked, his eyes suddenly became a little dull. With a bang, the skeleton was actually swept across the waist by Hao Yue's big tail. Its body was thrown out and collided with the skeleton that was burned by the fire of the sun. Both skeletons rolled on the ground at the same time. Hao Yue's melee ability was actually this strong. This was the first time that Long Hao-Chen had seen Hao Yue launch an attack with his body. Immediately after, he saw a series of magic bombardment. Light, fire, and wind, 3 low-grade magic baptized the two skeletons like storm. Although it was not enough to destroy them, the power was enough to suppress them and make them temporarily unable to move. Long Hao-Chen took a deep breath and thought to himself, Hao Yue's cultivation is probably at least at the peak of rank 6, and it's rank 3. Without considering equipment, I'm afraid that I may not be Hao Yue's opponent in terms of strength. Looking at its appearance, its external spiritual power should be quite strong, at least far from what I can compare with. At this moment, Long Hao-Chen felt a warmth in his chest rapidly spreading throughout his body. The feeling of irritation caused by the skeleton's slash immediately disappeared. As the warmth flowed through his limbs and bones, the soreness in his arms lessened by a lot. Even the wound between his thumb and forefinger closed and stopped bleeding. Without a doubt, the eternal melody was what gave Long Hao-Chen such a strong healing ability. Without any hesitation, the blue rain and hibiscus of light in Long Hao-Chen's hands flashed again. He turned his body halfway, and a red light suddenly shone on the skeleton that he had heavily injured before. Immediately after, accompanied by a light dragon's roar, the blue rain and hibiscus of light had already turned into a blue and gold cone of light that shot out explosively. Rain of light hibiscus sting. At the same time that he released this attack, Long Hao-Chen carefully observed the effect and the consumption of his spiritual power. He was pleasantly surprised to find that following the evolution of blue rain and hibiscus of light, his spiritual power consumption for the rain of light hibiscus sting this time had decreased by a lot. Although it still consumed 2,000 spiritual power, with his current spiritual power cultivation, he would not lose the ability to fight after releasing this attack. Not only did the rain of light hibiscus sting's power not decrease because of the reduction in spiritual power consumption, but it was even more tyrannical. Originally, the final attack of this attack was the combination of 2 rays of light that burst out with a powerful penetrating force. But this time it was different. Flying in the air, the blue light gradually disappeared and completely merged with the golden light. The moment the golden light hit its target, the skeleton's entire body turned into an icy blue color. It actually had a freezing effect. Boom! The skeleton that was trying hard to extinguish the sun's fire was instantly shattered into pieces. The moment the rain of light hibiscus sting exploded, the pale blue halo that spread out even caused its partner to slow down for a moment. It was continuously bombarded by several spells from Hao Yue and rolled on the ground for a few rounds. Finally killed one. Long Hao-Chen finally let out a sigh of relief. But at this time, a strange scene appeared. A speck of white light appeared in front of Long Hao-Chen like lightning. Long Hao-Chen subconsciously used the Holy Spirit's sword to block it, but he blocked empty air. That speck of white light didn't seem to receive even the slightest bit of force. In the next moment, it had already merged with Long Hao-Chen's body. Suddenly, a warm aura appeared in his chest. Long Hao-Chen hurriedly looked inside his body. He was surprised to find that in front of the Saint's spiritual furnace, there was a drop of white liquid floating. What was even more surprising was the purity of this drop of liquid. It didn't have any attribute and was highly concentrated. Long Hao-Chen was completely sure that the concentration of this drop of white liquid energy was equivalent to 10 drops of his liquid spiritual power. Only one of the two skeletons remained. The following battle was without any suspense. Long Hao-Chen learned from the previous lesson and cooperated with Hao Yue. Using the Saint's spiritual furnace's traction ability, they didn't let that skeleton have the opportunity to lock onto them and launch its powerful chopping skill. Finally, taking advantage of its inferior defensive power and low intelligence, they got rid of it. However, after getting rid of these two skeletons, Long Hao-Chen only felt physically and mentally exhausted. He was surprised to find that his spiritual power had unexpectedly been consumed by more than 80%. Even Hao Yue's magical power had been consumed by a lot. The moment the second skeleton was killed, the same drop of white liquid flowed into his body, combining with the previous drop. He didn't try to move forward again. With Long Hao-Chen's current state, he simply didn't have the slightest chance of winning against these two skeletons. The significance of killing these two skeletons was to give it a try. Watching the white bone fragments on the ground gradually disappear, Long Hao-Chen sat cross-legged on the ground thoughtfully. He urged the liquid spiritual power in his body to try to assimilate the two drops of white liquid. The result made him excited. The two drops of extremely pure, non-attribute energy didn't have the slightest bit of resistance. With just a little bit of contact with his own spiritual power, they became a part of his body's spiritual power. Moreover, just as he had predicted, each drop of this liquid energy increased his spiritual power by as much as 10 points. However, Long Hao-Chen quickly became depressed because his current spiritual power wasn't sufficient. The two drops of liquid energy were only to help him recover his spiritual power and nothing more. They didn't really increase his total spiritual power. Long Hao-Chen immediately realized where the problem was. What a loss. He should have waited until he had completely recovered his spiritual power before absorbing them. Defeating a skeleton could increase his spiritual power by 10 points. This was much faster than training. Although the two skeletons were quite tyrannical, the benefits that they brought to him were also very obvious. With the existence of the eternal melody, it only took less than half an hour for Long Hao-Chen to fully recover his spiritual power in this tower of eternity that was filled with the smell of death. Standing up again, Long Hao-Chen didn't continue to move forward. He had to leave this place. This experience in the Tower of Eternity had a great impact on him. He was full of curiosity about the sleeping disaster Electrolux, but he was very clear that if he wanted to find out the true situation of the disaster 10,000 years ago, he was afraid that he would only be able to reach the 7th floor. And this was obviously not something that could be done in a day or two. With the prohibition left by the divine law of necromancy, it was impossible for him to climb to the top of this tower without a 9th-stage cultivation base. The original resistance in Long Hao-Chen's heart had faded a lot with the death of the two skeletons. I don't want the inheritance of Electrolux, but it doesn't affect me to use this place as a training ground. There was no doubt that there were still countless mysterious and novel things waiting for him to discover in the Tower of Eternity. As for whether or not to share this place with his companions, he still had to go back and think about it clearly. At least he had to discuss it with Kair first. After all, the word necromancer was a huge shock to humans. After thinking about this, Long Hao-Chen suddenly felt a lot more cheerful. It was time to go back. It was at least more than 10 hours since he entered the cave. Hao Yue followed him here again. Thinking of this, Long Hao-Chen called out to Hao Yue, turned around, and walked out of the tower. At this moment, Hao Yue suddenly made a whining sound and blocked Long Hao-Chen's way. Long Hao-Chen looked at it doubtfully. What's wrong? Little Light stuck its head in front of Long Hao-Chen and spat out a pale golden bead. Long Houchin subconsciously raised his hand to catch it. The moment the golden bead fell into his hand, a golden light burst out and directly drilled into the space between Long Houchin's eyebrows. A short memory mark appeared in Long Houchin's mind. Azura / condense spiritual energy to gather / heaven and earth in Lang Lang. This was actually the memory of a skill. Moreover, it was a 6-stage skill. Wasn't it the terrifying, fatal blow from the skeleton that almost cut Long Houchin in half? Chapter 82. Learning the skill of the Golden Ball of Light was easy. He just needed to inject his spiritual energy into it. Of course, to truly understand the power of the skill, he still needed to practice continuously. The method of using the skill appeared in Long Houchin's mind after he was affected by the Golden Ball of Light. It was obviously part of the memory that Eternal Melody gave him. Without any hesitation, Long Houchin immediately learned the Shura Slash. What he lacked now was a direct attack skill. He had personally experienced the power of the Shura Slash. If it wasn't for his companions sharing their lives, he would have been seriously injured. The Golden Ball of Light gradually disappeared under the infusion of spiritual energy, and the method of using the Shura Slash was deeply imprinted in Long Houchin's mind. He gave a simple try. While the power was huge, the Shura Slash required a shocking amount of spiritual energy, up to 1,000 spiritual energy points. It didn't seem to consume as much as the Luminous Rain of Hibiscus Thorn, but don't forget, the Luminous Rain of Hibiscus Thorn was a skill that came with the weapon. It needed spiritual energy to activate the Blue Rain and Hibiscus of Light. Moreover, the Luminous Rain of Hibiscus Thorn was more powerful and had a larger attack range. The attack range of the Shura Slash was only within the range of the weapon's spiritual energy. Of course, the Shura Slash also had its advantages. Within a range of 5 meters, it ignored all the enemy's evasion skills. Just this alone was enough to make up for its flaw of consuming a large amount of energy. After all, it wasn't a commonly used skill. Moreover, among the grade 6 skills, its attack power should be one of the best, suitable for warriors and knight to learn. If the buff from Ripple of Light was added, how powerful would the attack be? The test came with the reward. The Shura Slash could increase Long Houchin's strength, but it was more important for him to understand the test in the Tower of Eternity. The gift of spiritual energy and skills. And from the looks of it, it wasn't limited to the Necromancer's ability. To him, this discovery was undoubtedly more useful than any treasure he had ever discovered. If he could continue to train here, his strength would increase at least a few times faster than his own training. Taking a deep breath, Long Houchin tried to calm his surging emotions. It seemed that he had to find a way to convince his companions to come with him. If it was someone else, their first thought would be to monopolize this place. But Long Houchin didn't think so. Although monopolizing it would allow him to keep the secret and allow him to grow stronger faster. However, the demons were powerful. Could they fight against the 72 demon gods by themselves? That was undoubtedly the ravings of a madman. The Child of Light was not only kind, but also had many other positive qualities. From the beginning to the end, Long Houchin had never thought of monopolizing this place. "Haoyue, let's go," Long Houchin said in a low voice. He jumped up and landed on Haoyue's back. Haoyue's 3 heads let out a low growl at the same time, its 4 hooves flying, and quickly rushed out of the gate of the Tower of Eternity. The moment they left the Tower of Eternity, Long Houchin felt as if the eternal melody in his chest had turned into a piece of burning charcoal. The intense burning sensation made him groan. Then, an ear-piercing shriek broke out instantly. A strong golden light burst out with Long Houchin as the center, protecting him and Haoyue. The shriek could still be heard, but it couldn't hurt them at all. Turning his head to look behind him, he saw that the countless wraiths outside the Tower of Eternity were flying toward the Tower of Eternity at a speed 10 times faster than before. Meanwhile, the Tower of Eternity emitted a grayish-white radiance that rose like flames. In just a few blinks of an eye, those wraiths had all attached themselves to the Tower of Eternity. The next moment, Long Houchin saw an unforgettable scene. At the top of the conical cave, a huge black hole opened up slowly. The entire cave trembled violently, as though it would collapse at any moment. Shortly after, the Tower of Eternity turned illusory in the process of light distortion. In the next moment, it disappeared into the black hole with a swoosh. The black hole closed, and the cave that was originally centered around the Tower of Eternity suddenly became empty. The shriek also came to an abrupt end at this moment. The burning feeling in his chest gradually disappeared, but Long Houchin clearly felt that there was an inexplicable connection quietly emerging. It seemed that as long as he willed it, he could set foot on the bridge of communication. Hao Yue carried Long Houchin, and Little Qing cast a levitation spell on herself to reduce the weight. Under the guidance of Long Houchin, they climbed toward the mountain wall. Although the terrain was dangerous when descending, it was not vertical after all. Hao Yue's 4 claws were extremely tough, and climbing was effortless. Suddenly, Long Houchin was shocked and raised his hand to touch the scouting gem hanging on his waist. His face suddenly became a little ugly. Because of the shock brought to him by the Tower of Eternity, he forgot to turn off the scouting gem before. If everything in the Tower of Eternity was remembered, then how would he explain to the soldier grade number 4 monster hunters when he went out? How would he report this mission when he went back? He was not afraid to tell the Temple League the secret of the Tower of Eternity, but the key problem was that the eternal melody, as the key to the Tower of Eternity, seemed to have merged with his body. This would definitely bring him a lot of trouble. Holding a slim chance, Long Houchin injected spiritual power into the scouting gem to check the content it recorded. A ray of light shot out from the scouting gem and turned into a circular image with a diameter of 1 meter in front of Long Houchin. The light screen started recording from the moment he entered the cave. Under the control of spiritual power, Long Houchin adjusted the speed at which the scouting gem recorded. Because the scouting gem was hanging on Long Houchin's waist, it was naturally impossible to record the process of him comprehending ripple of light. It could only record the process of each time Long Houchin resisted a shriek. Gradually, under Long Houchin's adjustment, the image finally reached the moment when he reached the underground. It recorded until the moment when the 2 vengeful spirits rushed toward him. At this point, the light screen suddenly became blurry and disappeared in the next moment. That's it. Long Houchin looked at the scouting gem in shock and injected spiritual power to check it again. But the result was exactly the same as before. The image finally stopped at the moment when Long Houchin was attacked by the vengeful spirits. The Tower of Eternity actually blocked the recording ability of the scouting gem. Just as Long Houchin was constantly checking the recording of the scouting gem, the entrance of the Howling Fear Cave was not quiet. Someone's coming. Honda Osi, who was responsible for keeping watch outside, suddenly flashed into the cave. This cave was dug by themselves. The mountain was hard, so they didn't dig it very deep and could only accommodate a few people sitting down. Of course, after Long Haoyue left, the space inside the cave was still a lot bigger. At this time, it was still dark outside, and there was still some time before dawn. It's demons I don't dare to go near. There are about 30 of them. The leading demon is even stronger than the demon commander that we intercepted. They just came down from the opposite mountain, and from our side, it seems like they've noticed us. Honda Osi had a special ability, which could enhance his vision at night. That's why he could see the movement on the opposite mountain. Prepare for battle. Lu Shi, I've never commanded a team battle before, so you'll command the battle. No matter what, we must hold on until Long Houchin returns. Kair said in a low voice. None of them expected the demons to come so quickly. But no matter how the demons got the news, before Long Houchin returns, they must fight. Otherwise, if these demons entered the cave, wouldn't they encounter Long Houchin? A demon that was even stronger than the demon commander was obviously not easy to deal with. Kair's pair of beautiful eyes were like stars in the dark night, shining with a faint light and even a bit of determination. Long Houchin hadn't returned after such a long time. She looked calm on the surface, but in her heart, she was more anxious than anyone else. Fortunately, with the existence of the soul chain, she was sure that Long Houchin's life wasn't in danger. Otherwise, she would have gone to find him long ago. Lucy knew that now wasn't the time to be polite, so he nodded and said, Long Houchin isn't here, and we lack the core to protect Night. In the battle later, we'll rely on the cave to defend. Lure them over first. The magic professions will all stay inside the cave, and the melee professions will guard the cave entrance. Kair, you, and Honda Osi will harass the enemies outside. Lin XN, you'll also be outside and use the Rose Unicorn's flying ability to support us in the air. Lucy's commanding ability wasn't bad. Perhaps he didn't have a strong overall view and prediction ability like Long Houchin, but he was definitely good at commanding a battle. Han Yu, Dian Yin, Wang Yuan, and Sima Xian walked out of the cave. Han Yu stood in the middle and quickly put on his equipment. Kair and Honda Osi hid in the shadows. Lin Xan was a disciplined knight, and defending was not her forte. So Lucy arranged for her to support from the outside and use the Rose Unicorn's advantage. However, in order not to expose herself too early, she chose to climb up the cave first and was ready to summon the Rose Unicorn at any time. After all, the demons didn't know how many people they had. Honda Osi held a pitch-black dagger in each hand, and the place he chose to hide was very clever, behind a rock above the Howling Terror Cave. But this time, he discovered that Kair had disappeared. He sighed in his heart. This is the difference between us. He never thought of Kair as a target. Before, when he couldn't see Kair, she was already so powerful, let alone now that she had regained her sight. Even as a member of the Assassin Temple, he only vaguely knew that Kair used to appear as a blind girl because of her special training method. Blending into the darkness, Kair didn't stay near the cave, but quietly walked down the mountain. In a team battle, the role of an assassin was actually limited. Assassins were best at sneak attacks, and the darkness in front of them was obviously the most suitable for her. Acting alone, she didn't need to worry about the safety of her teammates, and this was the best way to show off her attack power. The demons came very quickly, and Kair quickly saw that they had reached the foot of the first mountain and were preparing to climb up. Just like the batch of fiends they had killed before, this batch of fiend reinforcements were also great fiend cavalrymen. The great demon's shapeshifter was emitting a faint dark red light. If it wasn't for this eye-catching sign, Honda Osi wouldn't have been able to see them from so far away. 33. As Kair quietly approached, she counted the number of enemies. Just as Honda Osi had said, the great demon in the lead was exceptionally strong. He was much stronger than the demon commander, and more importantly, he had a pair of slanted bat wings on his back. The nightmare horse he was riding had 4 hooves on fire, and its pitch-black body flashed with red light from time to time, like burning charcoal. This was at least a 6th-grade magical beast. The demon commander that could ride, it was probably a 7th-grade demon. Kair and Long Houchin had also killed a 7th-grade bloodthirsty beta before, but that was mostly due to luck. In addition, Long Houchin's rain of light hibiscus thorn and her spiritual stove of samsara burst out together. In terms of real strength, although she and Long Houchin were talented, they could at most fight against a 6th-grade demon. A 7th-grade demon was no longer a commander Emi, but a demon lord. It was only a difference of one word, but the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. This demon lord wielded a dark red great sword, and a dark red light flashed in its eyes. Kair did not doubt its strength. The most important quality for an assassin was to be calm. No matter what, they had to be as cold as ice. Kair came down alone with a simple goal. She wanted to kill as many enemies as possible to slow down their climb to the top of the mountain. Hidden in the dark, Kair seemed to have become one with the mountain and did not emit any human aura. Even an assassin who was much stronger than her might not have the same level of breath concealment technique. The demon overlord at the very front quickly passed by, and Kair didn't have the slightest intention of acting blindly without thinking. She calmly waited for the demon cavalryman to pass in front of her, and only when the last demon cavalryman passed not far from her did she quietly leave like a wisp of smoke. The nightmare horse's perception was quite good, but at this moment, it was completely unaware of Kair following behind it. The so-called stealth technique was not to become invisible, but to make use of the environment to conceal one's existence as much as possible. At this moment, Kair was hidden in the shadow of the last demon cavalry. Although the environment was dark, there was still some light from the stars and moon in the sky. Kair was not in a hurry to make a move, but quietly followed the demon cavalry, preparing to climb the mountain. The demon lord was the first to ride his huge nightmare horse up the mountain peak where the Howling Fear Cave was located. The demon cavalry followed one after another. They were almost no different from human cavalry, orderly, and did not make too much noise. Just as the last great demon was about to climb the mountain on his nightmare horse, Kair, who was hidden in the shadows, made her move. She suddenly accelerated without warning, and even when she arrived behind the nightmare horse, she was not discovered by the other party. At this moment, she was like a ghost. Spiritual power erupted in an instant, and the dark gold dagger disappeared in a flash. With Kair's current cultivation, how could a sneak attack on a rank 4 great demon not succeed? The dagger directly sank into the back of the great demon's head, and at the same time, the dagger slashed downwards, instantly cutting off the central nervous system connecting the great demon's neck and head. Kair's assassination could be described as perfect, so much so that the great demon did not even have the chance to let out a scream, and only let out a muffled groan before falling down. Kair's movements did not stop. In the instant that the great demon fell down and the nightmare horse reacted, her left hand had already turned into a palm and slapped the great demon's body, blasting it forward like a cannonball. At the same time, the dark gold dagger in her right hand instantly pierced into the nightmare horse's back. This stab was too accurate, and it happened to hit the gap between the nightmare horse's 2 vertebrae. Tyrannical spiritual power erupted in an instant, and the nightmare horse let out a mournful roar, and in the next moment, its body was paralyzed on the ground. Kai didn't give this nightmare demon horse that had already lost its ability to fight another blow. Instead, borrowing the cover of the great demon's corpse, she instantly retreated into the darkness and disappeared. Retreating after one strike, never lingering to fight. This was what an excellent assassin had to do. The sudden attack caused the great demon cavalry to be in chaos. The demon lord in the lead suddenly turned around, and with a low roar, he shouted loudly in the demon language. Immediately after, a layer of dark red light spread from his body, and in an instant, all the great demon cavalry were enveloped in it. A dark red halo with a diameter of more than 2 meters appeared under the feet of each nightmare horse. As expected of a demon lord, this was impressively an AoE skill. At the same time, 2 rays of red light shot out of the demon lord's blood-red eyes and instantly swept in the direction that Kair had disappeared, and the red greatsword in his hand also lit up with a glaring light. The red light in the demon lord's eyes was clearly a divine detection skill, but unfortunately, he did not find what he wanted to find. Kair seemed to have already flown away like a swan. A fierce glint flashed in the demon lord's eyes. With a shout, the great demon cavalry resumed their journey, but this time, the demon lord was no longer at the front. Instead, he stayed in the middle, and the great demon cavalry escorted him forward. Even their speed had slowed down a bit. His fierce eyes swept the surroundings from time to time, looking for possible clues. Of course, Kair did not leave. She was still hidden in the shadows, but the demon lord could not find her. The death of a great demon cavalry did not cause the demon cavalry to panic. Instead, their defense became stronger. Kair discovered that apart from the demon lord in the middle, there were actually 2 grade 6 demon commanders among the great demon cavalry. At this time, they protected the front and back of the cavalry, greatly increasing the difficulty of Kair's sneak attack. The demon lord was furious. He did not even order his subordinates to collect the corpse of the dead great demon, nor did he care about the heavily injured nightmare horse. His ferocious appearance was even more ferocious in his anger, and he constantly strengthened his perception to search for traces of Kair. At this moment, a soft clang suddenly rang out in front of the great demon cavalry. The demon lord and the demon commander at the front reacted quickly and leaped out almost at the same time. It was especially so for the level 7 evil demon commander. He was like a blood-colored ball of light that had suddenly erupted. He leaped from the back of the nightmare demon horse, raised the heavy sword in his hand, and pounced towards the direction of the sound with lightning speed. While he was in midair, the blood-colored giant sword had already slashed out. The glaring blood-colored light instantly erupted with a fishy smell. This slash covered an area of more than 10 meters. Wherever it passed, the hard mountain rocks made popping sounds. Wherever the blood-colored light shrouded, the rocks melted as though they had fallen into a magma hell. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful the demon lord was, his attack had to hit its target. Just as his majestic sword flattened a large area of rocks, a scream came from behind him. The demon lord suddenly turned around, just in time to see a black shadow instantly disappear into the darkness. The attack of the grade 6 demon commander at the back also missed. Another great demon cavalryman slid down from the back of the nightmare horse, and it seemed like he would not survive. Roar! This time, the demon lord was truly enraged. He let out a deafening roar towards the sky, followed by a series of hurried incantations. Scarlet bloody light burst forth with him as the center, turning into a thick layer of red light that enveloped all the great demon cavalrymen. This time, if Kyr wanted to launch another sneak attack, she would have to destroy his defense first. Kyr sighed inwardly. As expected of a grade 7 powerhouse, he made the right choice in the shortest time possible. If the demon lord did not use a group defense spell, she still had many ways to launch a sneak attack. After releasing the group defense spell, the demon lord led the great demon cavalrymen up the mountain, and the nightmare horse galloped at full speed towards the Howling Fear Cave. Not being able to launch a sneak attack did not make Kyr anxious, and she continued to follow behind calmly. Now is not the time to go all out. The nightmare horse was indeed fast, and the mountain wasn't too steep. They were getting closer and closer to the Howling Fear Cave. Suddenly, a large patch of thorns appeared in front of them. These thorns were over a meter tall, and they were extremely tough. The great demon cavalrymen at the front had no choice but to use their spears to open a path, and their speed decreased. The eyes of the demon lord in the center flashed with a crimson light, and it barked out a few words. Immediately, the Tier 6 demon commander at the forefront took action. The demon commander raised its spear high, and a wave of dark red flames swept out, burning the thorns in front of it. Just as the thorns were burning, a strange energy fluctuation suddenly appeared in the center of the great demon cavalryman. Then, a huge silver light exploded in the center of the cavalryman. The sharp spatial elements were filled with a powerful tearing force, and the nightmare horse that bore the brunt of the attack immediately leaped up. Red light flickered on their bodies, and with the group defense spell released by the demon lord, they were not completely torn apart. The demon lord snorted angrily, and the nightmare horse beneath him raised its front hooves and stomped heavily on the ground. A dark red light filled with darkness and flames instantly spread and actually suppressed the rapidly erupting silver light. However, this silver light was not completely useless. At least the group defense spell that the demon lord had set up before was blasted apart. Ijun, who was hiding in the cave, was a little pale. The spatial magic just now consumed a lot of his energy, and he did not expect that it would be so easily blocked by the demon lord. It did not even cause any damage to the demon. At this moment, the attacks of the two monster hunters were already in full swing. 10 bright red spikes appeared at the same time as the demon lord's group defense spell disappeared with an ear-piercing whistle. Back then, Yang Wenjiao had a huge headache facing these spikes, but this time, Bai Xiaoma actually released as many as 10. It could be seen that her strength was continuously increasing through continuous training. Although the demon commander at the front had already blocked with all his might, in the end, he only managed to deflect 3 spikes. Bai Xiaoma's spiky plants were extremely crafty, and they shot out from different directions. Of course, the great demon cavalryman could also block them, But it was not that easy for them to completely block by Xiaoma's attack. At least 5 great demons suffered varying degrees of injuries, and puffs of blood exploded in the air. This was only the beginning. A large number of green beans fell from the sky, and these beans enveloped almost all the great demon cavalrymen. Just as the demon overlord was about to deal with those beans, an extremely sharp and terrifying killing intent locked onto his body, as if the god of death had descended. Even a rank 7 expert like the demon lord shuddered the moment he was locked on, and the skill that he was about to release into the air stopped. With his cultivation, he could completely sense the severity of the situation. The beans in the air did not pose any threat to him, but this sharp killing intent was an existence that could threaten his life. The demon commander at the back also wanted to release a group skill to defend against the green beans falling from the sky. Unfortunately, the moment he was about to release his skill, an icy cold light quietly approached his neck from behind. The rank 6 demon commander's reaction was relatively fast. He held his spear horizontally, and at the same time, the nightmare demon horse beneath him erupted with a ring of dark red flames. The black shadow disappeared in a flash, and the attack was retracted midway. It did not really land on him. Even so, the large cloud of beans in the air had already landed on the great demon cavalrymen. The beans burst one by one, and the sticky liquid immediately stained the bodies of the great demons and their nightmare demon horses. This feeling of being sticky was not pleasant. However, these great demons and nightmare demon horses had both darkness and fire attributes. Their ability was called Hellfire, and it had a certain restraining effect on by Xiaoma's plant summoning. They hurriedly released their flames to burn the sticky liquid. The one restraining the demon lord was naturally Kai. The rank 6 demon commander at the back was facing the threat of the other assassin, Hondaosi. Although Hondaosi was not as strong as Kai, how could an assassin who could enter the top 60 of the Monster Hunter's trials be ordinary? In a real battle, he naturally could not defeat the demon commander. However, if it was just restraining him, it would be enough for a short period of time. Just as the back was in chaos, the battle at the front had already changed. The rank 6 demon commander at the front flicked away 3 spikes and immediately locked his gaze on the 2 monster hunters. However, before he could rush out, a dark red figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his path. This figure was extremely tall, with a pair of bat wings spread open on its back, revealing a ferocious expression. Wasn't this the demon lord? In a world of demons, there was a clear hierarchy. When the demon commander saw his superior blocking in front of him, he was immediately stunned, and his movements naturally stopped. The demon lord in front of him did not say a word. It only raised its right claw and pointed behind it. The demon commander subconsciously turned around to look. In the instant he turned around, a miraculous scene unfolded behind him. A moment ago, it was still a rank 7 demon lord, but in an instant, it actually transformed into a great bird demon with a pair of wings on its back. In that instant, let alone the great demon cavalrymen, even the general rank 21 monster hunters and soldier rank 4 monster hunters were extremely shocked. The golden spear in the shape of a lightning bolt pierced through the demon commander's back. Blinding lightning instantly exploded, causing the demon commander's entire body to convulse and let out a mournful cry. If it was a head-on battle, it was hard to say who would have the upper hand against the demon commander. The great bird demon had the advantage in the air, but the demon commander had the support of his mount, the nightmare demon horse. However, a sneak attack was a different story. The demon commander naturally would not be on guard against the demon lord. How could he have guessed that it was a fatal trap? However, the nightmare demon horse beneath him was also a rank 5 demon. Seeing its knight being ambushed, it immediately charged forward in an attempt to knock the great bird demon horse away. The great bird demon horse reacted very quickly. It spread its wings and, at the same time, exerted force with the lightning spear in its hand. Its entire body suddenly floated horizontally, and a powerful lightning spiritual energy burst out. The heavily injured demon commander's body immediately emitted a charred smell. The nightmare demon horse beneath it also let out a miserable neigh, trembling from the electricity. The great bird demon horse was unforgiving. It swung its spear and threw the heavily injured demon commander behind it. Taking advantage of the nightmare demon horse's paralysis, the great bird demon horse stabbed its spear into its body once more. With its powerful attack power, it ended the nightmare demon horse's life. The great bird demon horse's thick staff struck the demon commander's head like a watermelon smashing into an iron rod. Immediately, various colored juices flew through the air. The demon commander was already dead. The great bird demon horse did not remain idle. After killing the demon commander, it flapped its wings and charged into the great demon cavalry like a tiger among a flock of sheep. Originally, the great bird demon horse had two demon commanders guarding the front and back, with a demon lord in the center. Their defensive line was complete and firm. But now that the core of the great demon horse had suddenly fallen, although the great demon horse was strong, they became even more flustered. Most of them had only just dealt with the slime of their bean pods. Bai Xiaoma's yellow coral-like plant could not only spit out sharp thorns once. At the same time as the great avian devil bird pounced forward, 10 more spikes shot out like lightning. At the same time, a large number of beans fell from the bean pod. A huge, heavy shield flew out from the side and swept across with a shrill whistle. 3 or 4 great demon cavalrymen were immediately swept down. On the other side, staff-wielding Sima Xian also appeared out of nowhere. This time, he directly released his berserk skill. The staff in his hand danced rapidly, and the holy missile array complemented his valiant attacks. Following closely behind Wang Yuan's powerful divine soul shield, he charged into the enemy's formation, specifically responsible for picking up the loose ends, killing the nightmare horses that had lost their great demons. Wang Yuan and Sima Xian rushed out, but Dian Yin and Han Yu stayed at the entrance of the cave. That place was filled with mages, so they needed their protection. After Yi Jun released a major spell, he also released one spatial spell after another in the air. Give strong support to the soldiers at the front. Just as the situation looked to be in their favor, however, the powerful Tier 7 demon overlord suddenly went berserk. If not for Kai Er's interference, how could the great demon cavalryman led by a demon lord be so easy to deal with? However, when the demon lord saw the great demon commander die and the great demon cavalryman under his command fall like wheat, the demon lord lost his cool. At the end of the day, he wasn't human, so he didn't think too much. He swept his blood-red great sword horizontally, and the nightmare horse beneath him leaped into the air. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the great avian devil that had just killed the demon commander. The great bird devil beast had just skewered a great devil cavalryman and his nightmare devil horse. Caught off guard, it flew backwards and swept its lightning spear horizontally, leaving behind a trail of lightning. The demon lord hated the great avian devil bird to the bone. He slashed down with his blood-red greatsword, and a 5-meter-long crimson sword light ruthlessly slashed at the great avian devil bird's spear. The difference in ranks was obvious at this moment. The great avian devil bird let out a miserable shriek as the lightning spear in its hand was instantly broken. The huge impact sent its body flying. A huge dark red energy shield erected behind the demon lord, blocking the countless white lights that burst out behind him. At the same time, he turned around and swept his blood-red great sword horizontally. A sharp sword light, accompanied by a large dark red light, instantly bloomed. The crimson radiance closed in from all directions, suppressing Kai, who was in the middle of releasing the spiritual furnace of 1,000 strikes, forcing her to face it head-on. With a flash of light, Kai-Er's body shattered. Of course, it was only an illusion. Kai-Er's real body was already several meters away. Even so, the demon lord's tyrannical attack still sent her body tumbling away. Her body flickered and disappeared into the darkness. Kai wouldn't casually use the spiritual furnace of samsara. Not only would it give her a sense of loss, but it would also drain all of her spiritual energy. It was the final move to perish together with the enemy. The demon lord's attack forced Kai back, but he didn't chase after her. Instead, he let out a roar towards the sky. The remaining dozen or so cavalrymen attacked, and the other demon commander quickly closed in on him. Everyone retreat. Lu Shi's voice rang out. The great avian devil bird had already returned to the cave entrance. They could clearly see that there was a deep wound on his chest. If his reaction had been just a little slower, that attack would have been enough to cut him in two. This was the strength of a seventh order. Moreover, this demon lord clearly hadn't just entered the seventh order. He was at least at the fourth or fifth order. Wang Yuan and Sima Xian didn't continue fighting and hurriedly retreated towards the cave entrance. Kai and Han Daosi also went around to the sides. Chapter 83. The demon lord was not in a hurry to give chase. Instead, he kept chanting in the demon language. Sometimes it was loud, sometimes it was low, but it was filled with an evil aura. The dark red light on his body became denser and denser, and the red halos under the great demon cavalrymen also became stronger. They pointed their spears forward and chanted in a low voice. The nightmare demon horses under them also emitted layers of red light that strengthened the great demon cavalrymen. It could be said that the success of the two demon hunt squads just now was mainly due to their sneak attack, as well as Kai and Han Daosi's restraint, as well as taking advantage of the terrain, which allowed them to achieve such a good result. The demon cavalrymen were also led by different commanders, so their strength was completely different. Don't think that these demons would be easy to deal with just because they easily won against the 50 demon cavalrymen. The main reason they were able to wipe out the enemy last time was because of Hao Yue's chaos elemental stripping. The power of the tri-elemental magic had weakened the great demon cavalrymen by more than half. Moreover, they still had Long Haochen, who was their mainstay. This time, although there were only 30 demon cavalrymen, there was 1 stage 7 and 2 stage 6 demon cavalrymen. Just their existence alone was enough to make it difficult for the two monster hunters to deal with. As such, the real battle had only just begun. Just like the tactic that Lu Shi had specified before, defense was their real tactical arrangement. The abomination overlord didn't join the formation. Instead, he stayed at the back, carrying his blood-red sword and riding a giant nightmare demon horse. It looked like he was supervising the battle, but in fact he was guarding the rear. In its perception, the only one who could threaten it was Kai. After the injured great bird demon entered the cave, it went straight to Chen Ying'er's side and whimpered at her. Its eyes were filled with grievance. Looking at the injuries on its body, Chen Ying'er was also very distressed. However, she couldn't let Lu Shi heal it now, because its body was full of darkness and lightning attributes. Once the light attribute healed it, it would have the opposite effect. Without a doubt, this great devil bird was none other than the mirror image divine Pygmadol. It had first transformed into the appearance of a demon lord to confuse the enemy, and then it had eaten the great bird devil's magic crystal. Although they had consumed a level 6 magical crystal, there was no doubt that killing a strong enemy had relieved a lot of pressure on the two teams of monster hunters. The great bird devil snorted and ran to the entrance of the cave. Dense lightning spiritual energy condensed around its body, and it clasped its hands together to form a heart. A ball of golden lightning, surrounded by black air, quickly condensed. The 10 minutes were not up yet, and he still had a lot of spiritual energy from the magic crystals. Naturally, he could not waste it. The great devil cavalryman's attack finally began. Under the leadership of the demon commander, the spears in their hands burst with a dense dark red light. As they charged, the spears pointed forward, and the incantations paused for a moment. Rays of blood-red light bombarded the entrance of the cave. The most frightening thing was that the dark red light actually fused with the demon commander's attack, condensing into a powerful ray of light that bombarded the entrance of the cave. The powerful might cause the expressions of all the demon hunters in the cave to change. At that moment, they finally understood how powerful the demon cavalrymen were. The cavalry's greatest advantage was their charge. Even though they were in a mountainous area, the nightmare demon horse's climbing ability allowed the great devil cavalryman's charge to be as powerful as before. Facing the sharp, dark red light, Hanyu did not hesitate and resolutely stood in front of it, holding his heavy shield in front of him. The holy light barrier and holy light seeping shield were instantly released. Two fire elemental shields appeared on his body, and at the same time, a silver ray of light bombarded the dark red light. It slightly weakened its attack power. Boom! The powerful attack tore apart the two fire elemental shields and holy light barrier in an instant, and then bombarded the shield with the holy light seeping shield. The shield that Han Q gave his grandson was not a powerful weapon. It was just a magic-level shield. Amidst the violent roar, Han Yu's body flashed with a golden light. It was the Divine Guard. He had learned this skill after inheriting Han Q's skill. However, because Long Haochen was in the team, he rarely used it. In everyone's opinion, with the Divine Guard, Han Yu should be able to easily block this attack. But in fact, under the full explosion of this attack, Han Yu let out a muffled groan, and the shield in his hand hit his chest. He only managed to stabilize himself after taking 3 steps back. At the same time, the bodies of the 21st General-Grade Monster Hunters lit up. The life-sharing function of the Soul Chain was released, sharing the damage suffered by Han Yu. Puff! Han Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, a golden light spread out in the cave and fell on everyone. Lu Shi's group healing was very well timed. Not only was Han Yu injured, but Madul had also turned back from the Great Bird Demon Beast to the Mirror Image Mythical Pig. Lu Shi's healing was just in time to affect everyone. Han Yu only felt a stuffiness in his chest. At the same time, he sighed inwardly. Long Haochen had always been at the forefront. Today, it was him who truly understood how much pressure Long Haochen had to bear. Moreover, Long Haochen often relied on his Saint's spiritual stove to attract the most powerful enemies to him. Han Yu was forced to retreat, and Dian Yin was duty-bound to stand in his previous position. Finally, the Mirror Image Mythical Pig's final attack had a certain effect. With a violent explosion, another 2 great fiend cavalrymen were blown away. The speed of the lightning was too fast, so fast that the Demon Lord didn't have time to rescue them. However, this obviously couldn't affect the overall situation. The second wave of tyrannical attacks had already arrived. It was still an attack with superimposed charges. After this attack, the great fiend cavalrymen would rush to the front of the cave. Dian Yan's situation was far from Han Yu's. His cultivation was much worse than Han Yu's. Although he had the assistance of Lin Xion's 2 fire elemental shields. Not only was his body bombarded and sent flying, but the shield in his hand was also broken into pieces. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He had already suffered a serious injury. The soldier rank 4 monster hunters didn't have companions to share their injuries. If it wasn't for Lu Shi's timely treatment, it was very likely that Dian Yin would have lost his life. Even if the treatment kept up, he wouldn't be able to fight for a short period of time. The 2 arms that were holding the shield were all broken. The rank 6 demon commander had already rushed to the front, and the great fiend cavalryman's formation also changed in an instant. The original cone-shaped formation suddenly became a straight line. The demon commander was at the forefront, and the other great fiend cavalrymen lined up behind him. Every great fiend pointed the spear in their hands forward. Dark red spiritual power unexpectedly connected into a straight line and poured into the demon commander's body. At this time, if one paid attention, they would discover that only 10 great fiends did this. There were still 3 great fiends idle in the back. Obviously, the demon commander's body also had a limit. The standard spiritual power of a rank 6 was above 4,000. The demon's spiritual power connection method could at most raise the spiritual power of the caster to the peak of the rank. It was impossible to produce a breakthrough effect. In other words, the demon commander's spiritual power could at most be raised to within 10,000, and it wouldn't exceed 10,000. Even so, for the 2 Monster Hunters teams, this was already a disaster. Apart from Long Haochen, who hadn't returned yet. None of them had a spiritual power above 3,000. How could they resist the demon commander that was strengthened by the spiritual power connection method? I'm first, Yuan second, Sima third. Han Yu shouted as he rushed forward. His aura suddenly increased exponentially. He raised the heavy shield in his hand, and an intense golden light bloomed like a fountain. The almost tangible light spiritual power brazenly collided with the attacking demon commander. Amidst the explosion, what was shocking was that this time, Han Yu didn't even take half a step back. With a flash of the vengeance of light, he counterattacked and actually fought head-on with the demon commander. Surprisingly, Wang Yuan and Sima Xian didn't go forward to help. Instead, they took half a step back and protected the cave entrance. Lin Stupid kept releasing fire elemental shields to support Han Yu. Yijun also kept releasing his spatial magic to attack. Lu Shi's healing and various buffs continued to be released, and she actually helped Han Yu to miraculously block the attack of the demon commander. Bai Xiaoma's plant summoning was no longer of much use at this time. The great demon knight's body was burning with dark red flames, and there was also the demon lord glaring at them from behind. The summoning magic that she released before had all disappeared, and it was obviously impossible to make up for it from outside. This was obviously not a real miracle, nor was it a qualitative breakthrough for Han Yu. There was only one reason why he suddenly became strong to resist the attack of the demon commander: taking medicine. The superimposed effect of the spirit explosion pill and bloodthirst pill instantly increased his strength by a level. Although the consumption was huge, there was no doubt that the effect was strong enough. With the help of his companions, he was barely able to resist the enemy's attack. Han Yu was very clear that even if Wang Yuan and Sima Xian also took the medicine, they would not be able to block the demon commander's attack head-on like him. This was because they didn't have a skill like Divine Block to increase their defense. So, he made up his mind to last as long as possible no matter what. Wang Yuan was prepared to take over at any time, but at this time, Sima Xian's voice rang out. Yuan, I'll be second later. Wang Yuan was stunned for a moment and subconsciously looked at him. Sima Xian's expression was solemn and full of determination. He looked Wang Yuan in the eye and said, "I'm a man." Okay. Wang Yuan did not continue to pester him. She just walked towards him and gave him a thumbs up. At this time, everyone in the number 21 general level monster hunters thought of Long Haochen. If he was here, perhaps everything would be different. He would definitely be able to block the enemy's attack without taking the medicine. A team without a core member would definitely suffer a great loss in overall strength. The cold, killing intent appeared once again. This time, it was much sharper and sharper than before. In the darkness, Kair slowly walked out. She no longer hid herself, and just walked step by step towards the demon lord. The cave was still able to hold off the devil commander's attack for the time being, but the devil overlord was the real threat that could kill them. Kair had no other choice. With every step she took, the gray air around Kair's body became denser, and the murderous intent gradually condensed into the shape of a sharp blade behind her. Kair held a dark gold dagger in her right hand and pointed it diagonally to the ground, while her left hand pressed against the center of her chest. She walked very slowly, but the demon lord who saw her clearly became nervous. He held his blood-red heavy sword with both hands and stood still. However, the dark red light around his body continued to strengthen. This time, Kair was serious. If she could not effectively kill the enemy, then they would all die here today. She did not know when Long Haochen would return, but she was the current temporary leader. Everyone stayed for Long Haochen's safe return, so that he would not be attacked by the demons in the Wailing Howl Cave. As Long Haochen's girlfriend, she was duty-bound to use her own strength to ensure everyone's survival. Kair's eyes had unknowingly turned gray. Around the sharp blade condensed from murderous intent behind her, 6 different symbols gradually appeared. These symbols were very special and did not belong to any language. However, when they appeared, the demon lord actually took half a step back, so much so that he did not even react when Han Daosi quietly rushed out from the side and attacked the great demon cavalry behind him. There was even a hint of panic on his sinister face. My eye is your eye, the first of the 6 paths of reincarnation, the eye's reincarnation. Kai moved, and all the sharp, murderous intent disappeared the moment she suddenly transformed. In her left hand, a pitch-black dagger that shone with a dark purple light appeared. Behind her, among the 6 symbols from before, the symbol that looked like an eye suddenly enlarged and covered her figure. At this moment, Kai did not seem to be her original self. In the demon lord's eyes, she was like a god of death descending. In a burst of bloody light, the demon lord's entire body seemed to transform into a giant blood-red ball of light. Tens of thousands of rays of bloody light suddenly shot out from his body, attempting to block Kai-Er's attack from all directions. This was because in the instant that Kai-Er accelerated, the demon lord suddenly discovered that the hair-raising, murderous intent had completely disappeared. At the same time, all of his perception of Kai-Er had disappeared. The dark purple light crisscrossed, and in the next instant, Kai-Er had already appeared 10 feet behind the demon lord. A mournful scream suddenly erupted from the demon lord's mouth. A third of the blood-red heavy sword in his hand had been broken. More importantly, black blood flowed out of his eyes. He was completely blind. There was also a wound on his left shoulder that was so deep that bone could be seen. The nightmare demon horse beneath him had all 4 of its limbs broken, and it lay prostrate on the ground with a mournful cry. However, at the same time, Kai-Er's eyes lost all of their luster. My ear is your ear. 6 paths of reincarnation, second style, reincarnation of the ear. Kai-Er did not stop. Pitch black like ink, noble like purple, the sword of reincarnation struck again with a poignant light. Her body also disappeared into the darkness once more, leaving only a second strange symbol in the air. Ever since she had cultivated the spiritual stove of samsara, this was the first time that Kai had used her full strength. As the strongest spiritual stove the humans had discovered, its power could not be compared to any other spiritual stove. Of course, the demon lord would not resign himself to death. As he roared, his body suddenly turned transparent dark red, and there was even an explosive roar from within his body. At this moment, he was like a human knight who had displayed the body of light. With the broken half of the sword in his hand, he suddenly leaped from the nightmare demon horse's back and spun rapidly in the air like a top. The terrifying spiritual power undulations caused the surroundings to turn into a fiery hell. The hard rocks on the ground rapidly melted, and his body actually sank to the ground. Puff! When she reappeared, Kai landed on the other side of the demon lord. The demon lord's rapid spinning also came to an abrupt halt. His entire right arm directly turned into a bloody mist and disappeared in the air. Black blood spurted out of his ears, and he let out a mournful scream as his huge body tumbled to the ground. With his remaining left hand, he frantically punched in Kai-Er's direction. A ball of dark red light suddenly emerged from his fist. Within that ball of dark red light, there was actually a hexagonal dark red crystal, a magical crystal. In his extreme fear and pain, the demon lord actually used his own magical crystal as the source to launch a final fatal attack on Kai-Er. Even if he succeeded in killing Kai-Er with this attack, it would probably be difficult for him to survive. My taste is your taste. 6 paths of reincarnation, third style, reincarnation of the tone. The dark light didn't disappear this time. The dark purple light was like a shocking rainbow. Kerr, who had become one with the sword, was like the Grim Reaper's sword that pierced through the barrier. In the next instant, she once again appeared behind the demon lord. The magical crystal froze in the air. In the next instant, 2 crisp sounds rang out. The core magical crystal of the demon lord's final attack was actually cut in half. It didn't even have the chance to display its power before falling to the ground. The demon lord's huge body froze. The flames around him were still burning, but the nightmare demon horse he was riding was frozen along with him. A trail of blood extended from the top of the demon lord's head to the belly of the nightmare demon horse. Plop! The split corpse suddenly fell to the ground. Strangely, no blood flowed out. Whether it was the nightmare demon horse or the demon lord's flesh, they all turned gray. A bloody light shot out from the demon lord's body and exploded into a bloody halo in the air. As the night wind blew, Kyra stood there quietly, motionless. Her whole person was like a statue in the darkness, calm and still. All the sharp aura disappeared at this moment. She just stood there motionless. However, not a single great demon had the courage to attack her. Kai, or used the spiritual stove of samsara and the scrape of samsara. The situation of the battle was changing rapidly. Honda Osi's sneak attack from the back was successful. More importantly, there were attacks from above the great demon cavalry. Lin Xin had been waiting for an opportunity. She was very clear that when facing the demon lord, she would only be courting death if she attacked carelessly. The moment Kai succeeded in restraining the demon lord, Lin Xin finally made her move. The rose unicorn and her spiritual power merged perfectly. When Honda Osi attacked from the back, a dazzling red light also descended from the sky. Lin Xion's attack was a charge attack. She was only a hair's breadth away from the fifth order. With the help of the charged attack, she could barely use the holy sword. Furthermore, she had the rose unicorn's buff. Under the double buff, the holy light slash descended from the sky. Her holy light slash was different from Long Houchen's. Other than the light element, it was also filled with fierce fire element. The position she chose to attack was also very clever. It was the center of the great demon knight's spiritual power. If it was too far back, it would not be enough to weaken the demon lord. If it was too far forward, the demon lord would automatically block it. Boom! The two great demon knights were completely sent flying by Lin Xion's attack. There were only 5 great demon knights left who could buff the demon lord's spiritual power. Honda Osi also succeeded. His dagger fiercely stabbed into the neck of a great demon knight, completely severing its central nervous system. Their actions greatly reduced the pressure on the defense at the cave entrance. Even so, the situation at the cave entrance was still very dangerous. Hanyu held on for a whole 3 minutes. Finally, he could not hold on any longer. The shield and sword in his hand shattered, and he was forced to retreat. Ma Kun, who was following behind, only managed to block 3 attacks before he was sent flying, blood spurting from his mouth. The staff in his hand was broken into 2 pieces. Wang Yuanyuan fared better than Ma Kun. She did not specialize in defense, so she could only rely on the giant soul divine shield to fight the demon lord attacks. With the buffs from the spirit explosion pill and the bloodthirst pill, she could last twice as long as Ma Kun. Just as she was pushed back, the spiritual power behind the demon lord's spiritual power dropped. However, there was no longer enough close combat to defend the cave. At this critical juncture, a great demon bird covered in lightning once again appeared on the battlefield. The mirror image treasure pig attacked once more. However, even though the demon lord's spiritual power had been greatly weakened, it was still far stronger than the great bird demon. Moreover, the mirror image treasure pig was only a mirror great bird demon. Its ability to use its abilities could not compare to the real great bird demon. It did not have a soul chain to distribute the damage. Under the powerful attacks of the demon lord, it was forced to retreat into the cave. At this moment, the situation of everyone in the cave was getting worse. Bai Xiaoma and Yi Jun had exhausted their spiritual power. Lu Shi's healing was not effective on the great bird demon. Under the effects of the soul chain, Han Yu, Wang Yuanyuan, Sima Xian, and Lin Xen were all heavily injured. Han Yu and Sima Xian had even lost their weapons. Although the demon lord's spiritual power was not as terrifying as 10,000, it was still around 6,000 or 7,000. Once the front line of defense collapsed, the 2 monster hunters teams would be slaughtered. Finally, the great bird demon was sent flying and slammed into the wall behind it. The huge wound made it impossible for it to maintain its mirror image form. The heavily injured mirror image treasure pig revealed its true form. Hanyu, Wang Yuan, and Sima Xian pounced at the same time. However, the demon lord only turned its body sideways and sent them flying. Deep wounds were left on Sima Xian and Hanyu's bodies. Within the cave, the only one who still had a relatively complete fighting capacity was Lin Xian. Fire Elemental Shield, Fire Resistance Ring. Lin Xian's hand trembled as he held the Fire Cloud Crystal Staff. In terms of spiritual power, he was one of the best in the team. However, he was a mage that could not attack. A shriek suddenly came from Lin Xian's back, followed by the sound of a body falling. A silvery light suddenly burst forth beneath the demon commander's feet, and that disdainful, malevolent figure was unexpectedly frozen in place. Lin Xian suddenly turned his head and saw Yijun's body burning with silver flames. Yijun hurriedly said, "Quick, attack him. I can't hold on for much longer." Life fire. That was the life fire. By doing this, Yijun was burning his own life force. Only when his life ended would this spell end. The demon lord did not move. Its ferocious face was not far from Lin Xian. However, it couldn't attack. The soul chain's life sharing couldn't remove the backlash. When the spirit explosion pill and bloodthirst pill disappeared, Hanyu, Wang Yuan, and Sima Xian had all lost their ability to fight. Their spiritual power had been completely drained. I don't know any attack spells," Lin Xian said in a daze. Lucia used all her strength and released a series of holy light bullets at the demon lord. She roared, "Bastard, don't tell me you don't even know a basic fireball spell." In the cave, the only one who could attack was Lin Xian. However, his face was deathly pale. The staff in his hand was emitting flames, but he couldn't release a single attack spell. "I can't hold on anymore," Yijun roared. Blood flowed from his 7 orifices. Lin Xian roared crazily. The resistance ring of fire bloomed. With a loud bang, the demon lord was sent flying out of the cave. It also ended the restriction of Yijun's magic. Yijun looked at Lin Xian, full of unwillingness, and fell into a deep coma just like that. The demon commander was sent flying out of the cave. Just as he was about to launch another massacre, a beam of golden light suddenly descended from the sky like a shocking rainbow. An ear-piercing howl accompanied by an incomparably powerful aura descended, bringing with it an incomparably sharp attack power. The pressure of the air made it so that the demon commander, who had a spiritual energy value of over 6,000, was unable to dodge at all. The last thing he saw in his life was a figure riding a 3-headed beast descending from the sky, and his body was completely golden. Puff! The sword broke, and the person broke. One sword cut them in half. The demon lord, along with the rank 5 nightmare beast he was riding, were cut in half by this shocking attack. Their corpses fell to the sides. The 5 great demon cavalrymen behind him spat out mouthfuls of black blood at the same time. Roar! Hao Yue's 3 heads roared at the same time. 3 breaths shot out, sending the 5 demon riders flying. Long Haochen's figure flashed out. The light elemental sprite Yu Ting behind him kept producing rings of white light around Long Haochen. The spirit gathering ring of light was replenishing Long Haochen's spiritual power at an astonishing rate. Yes, at the moment of life and death, Long Haochen finally rushed back. He was holding blue rain and hibiscus of light in both hands. The thick golden light formed a golden halo around his body. With the amplification from the light elemental sprite Yiting, even without Hao Yue, he was confident that he could take on any rank 6 powerhouse. Without a doubt, the attack that killed the demon lord was the Shura Slash. If it was just the Shura Slash, it would not be so powerful. However, what if it was the Shura Slash that was charged up? On the way back, with Hao Yue climbing, Long Haochen was immersed in comprehending the Shura Slash. He quickly discovered that his newly learned Shura Slash could be used in tandem with the charged-up skill. This way, the power of the Shura Slash became even more terrifying. If he was alone, he naturally would not use the charged-up skill in battle. That would be courting death. However, do not forget that he still had Hao Yue's help. Standing on Hao Yue's back, he had time to complete the charged-up skill. As for that demon commander, it became the first sacrifice that the Azura would behead. The Shura slash that had 3,000 spiritual power was so powerful that even Long Haochen was shocked. However, he did not have the time to be excited. On the way back, he could feel the damage caused by the life-sharing of the soul chain. As a knight, he could naturally heal with Hao Yue and share the pain. But how could he not know that his companions were in danger? He hurriedly rushed back with Hao Yue. Before leaving the cave, he had already started to prepare the Shura slash. Long Haochen believed that the enemy must be led by a strong person, so it was of utmost importance to deal a heavy blow to the enemy's leader. Moreover, the appearance of the eternal melody allowed Long Haochen to have the spiritual aperture ability of a rank 6 knight in advance. Whenever he used an attack, his spiritual power recovery speed would be 3 times faster than before. With Yi Ting's help, his spiritual power could recover at a terrifying rate of 20 points per second during battle. Long Haochen was completely sure that the Eternal Melody Necklace was at least a legendary equipment, and that was the most conservative estimate. Using the 9 dragon steps, Long Haochen's figure shuttled between the Demon Knight like an illusion. He was very anxious because not long before he rushed out of the cave, he clearly felt a strong sense of unease. That feeling of anxiety made his heart flutter. The lightning thorn carried an illusory misty radiance that spread in an instant. This was no longer the original lightning thorn, but a lightning thorn with ripple of light. With Long Haochen's current cultivation, how could these great demon cavalrymen resist him? Dazzling heaven and earth flickered behind him. Little Light's spiritual support instantly fell on Long Haochen's body, while Little Fire and Little Green also cast one low-level magic after another like a torrential storm to protect his 2 flanks. Not a single demon rider could block Long Haochen's blue rain and hibiscus of light with their spears. The lights swallowed, and only the sound of swords entering their bodies could be heard. Lightning Thrust was only a low-tiered skill for punishment paladins. Normally, high-tiered experts would only use it against low-tiered opponents. It was also used as a combo with other skills. Because Lightning Thorn's attack power was dispersed, and it didn't need to consume too much spiritual power to transform into many swords, the high-level knight rarely used it. However, in Long Haochen's hands, this skill completely changed. After he obtained Blue Rain and Hibiscus of Light, the power of Lightning Thorn had greatly increased. From a pure light, dazzling skill, it became a light and water dual piercing skill. Now, with the addition of Ripple of Light, the attack power of each sword was greatly enhanced. Long Haochen had just comprehended Ripple of Light and didn't have the time to truly improve Lightning Thorn. Even so, it wasn't something those ordinary demon riders could block. With Han Daosi and Lin Xian's cooperation, the rest of the battle quickly ended. All of the demon riders had died halfway up the mountain. There were a few who wanted to escape, but how could they outrun the rose unicorn that could fly in the sky? They were all killed by Lin Xian. Long Haochen, you finally returned. Lin Xian landed on the ground on her rose unicorn and dismounted. However, when she arrived in front of Long Haochen, she discovered that Long Haochen was standing there, his body trembling slightly. Lin Xian followed Long Haochen's gaze and saw that not far away, Kai Er was quietly standing there like a statue. Such an intense battle had occurred, but she didn't react at all. She was like a walking corpse. Kai Er, Long Haochen's voice trembled. Light flashed in his hands, and Blue Rain and Hibiscus of Light disappeared. He took quick steps, and even used an assault skill, instantly rushing in front of Kai Er. A dark golden light flashed, and Kai Er's right hand was raised slightly. However, she only raised it for a moment before it fell back down. Her body went limp, and she fell into Long Haochen's arms. Long Haochen tightly hugged her soft body, and without hesitation, he enveloped himself and Kai Er with a holy light barrier. However, he quickly discovered that Kai Er's vitals weren't in any discomfort. It was just that she had used up a lot of her spiritual energy, both internally and externally. Her whole body went limp in Long Haochen's arms, and she couldn't even lift a finger. How could this be? How could this be? It's all my fault for coming back late. Long Haochen regretted not coming back earlier. He was smart enough to understand why his companions were fighting to the death here, even when his mind was in a mess. All of this was caused by my own misjudgment. I thought that the demons wouldn't be able to arrive in a short time, so I stayed for too long. It's all my fault, it's all my fault. Long Haochen's heart was filled with self-blame. He finally saw the demon lord's corpse that had been cut in half. What a huge demon and a nightmare demon horse. Long Haochen gently stroked Kai Er's long hair. Silly, did you use the spiritual stove of samsara again? It's all my fault, it's all my fault. Hugging Kai Er tightly in his arms, Long Haochen's heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. His eyes turned red. Chapter 84. Long Haochen stuffed a great recovery elixir into his mouth. After chewing for a bit, he lowered his head, lifted Kai Er's veil, and poured the elixir liquid into Kai Er's mouth. Kai Er's lips were very cold and soft, but how could Long Haochen be in the mood to experience this kind of charm? Being kissed by Long Haochen and feeling his familiar breath, Kai Er's body trembled slightly. There was a reaction. Long Haochen heaved a sigh of relief and carefully pushed the elixir liquid into Kai Er's body with his spiritual power. Long Haochen hugged her tightly. Tears glistened in his red eyes, and his body trembled uncontrollably. Kai Er, which of the 6 senses did you lose this time? Perhaps it was the effect of the great recovery elixir, or perhaps it was because Kai felt Long Haochen's intentions, but her fingers moved slightly. Long Haochen hurriedly held her hand and let her fingers move in his palm. Very quickly, Long Haochen's face became pale. Smell, sight, hearing, and taste. Out of the 6 senses, she had actually lost 4. Kai Er had once briefly explained some of the uses of the spiritual stove of samsara to Long Haochen. The more powerful the attack, the more it needed to pay. Losing the 4 senses was already pushing the spiritual stove of samsara to its peak. If the enemy was a bit stronger, and her spiritual stove of samsara released the last 2 senses, then it was very likely that she would never be able to recover. Losing 1 sense required a month to recover. Aside from having the spiritual stove of samsara, which required her to maintain one of the 6 senses at all times, she had used the 3 attacks of the spiritual stove of samsara. Losing the 2nd sense required 2 months to recover, and it was stacked. As for losing the 3rd sense, it would take 4 months, which would increase exponentially. Hearing, sight, and taste. Losing these 3 senses would require a full 7 months to return to normal. Furthermore, if she continued to use the spiritual stove of samsara during this period of time, she would need another 8 months to recover if she lost another sense. If he used the 5th layer of the spiritual stove of samsara, which was also the last layer, then all his 6 senses would never be able to recover. He would only be a walking corpse with 1 breath left. Of course, the lethality of the spiritual stove of samsara would be terrifying to the extreme if it reached that stage. Back then, the son of samsara had relied on the 5th layer of the spiritual stove of samsara to severely injure the demon emperor of that generation. Moreover, in the next 7 months, Kai Er would not recover those 3 senses one by one. Instead, she would have to wait for the 7 months to pass before she could recover them all at once. The backlash of the spiritual stove of samsara was also incomparably terrifying. Just as Long Haochen felt a sharp pain in his heart and hugged Kai Er tightly, not knowing how to comfort her, he suddenly raised his head and looked into the distance. On the opposite mountain peak, a group of evil demon knights riding on nightmare demon horses were diving down from the opposite mountain peak. Their target was them. At that moment, the group of evil demon knights had a total of about 30 riders. It was temporarily unclear how strong they were. Long Haochen gently placed Kai Er to the side. Then he slowly straightened his body and turned to Lin Xian and Han Daosi. You two guard the cave. Leave the rest to me. Seeing Haochen's expression, Lin Xian could not help but be stunned. Between the 2 monster hunters, She had known Long Haochen for the longest time. However, she had never seen her kind-hearted younger brother with such an expression. At that moment, Long Haochen's eyes were bloodshot. His body emitted a biting, cold, murderous aura. Light elements fluctuated around his body in an unstable manner. His sharp eyes were even filled with a hint of bloodlust. The heavy injuries caused by Kair using the spiritual stove of samsara caused Long Haochen to completely explode. He needed a vent. He needed to use the blood of his enemies to wash away the anger in his heart. Lin Xian and Han Daosi did not say anything. They immediately returned to guard the cave. As for Long Haochen, he took off the Holy Spirit armor on his body. At that moment, Long Haochen suddenly felt a cool feeling coming from the eternal melody in his chest. It calmed the pain and anger in his heart. At the same time, Long Haochen was surprised to find that there seemed to be a strange energy flowing into the eternal melody. The moment the energy entered the eternal melody, it disappeared without a sound. What is this? Long Haochen's senses were much sharper than the average person's. He looked in the direction of the energy and was surprised to find that the source of the energy was actually the great evil demon knight in their mounts. Soul. It was soul energy. Long Haochen's mind instantly gave him such a judgment. This was the eternal melody absorbing the souls of the dead to replenish the eternal sleep. This knowledge appeared completely naturally in Long Haochen's mind. Ever since he entered the Tower of Eternity, all his future experiences required the support of a large amount of soul energy. Although the Tower of Eternity itself had a large amount of energy, if it was only consumed in one direction, it would eventually be exhausted. As he wore the eternal melody, he himself was the entrance to the Tower of Eternity. He was also the collector of souls. Therefore, the souls of the corpses that died not long ago, regardless of race, will be collected by the eternal melody. This feeling was very uncomfortable for Long Haochen as the Son of Light, but he had no other choice. The eternal melody had already completely fused with his body and could not be separated. Moreover, he couldn't easily tell others about this matter. Only when he met with his father and teacher would he have the possibility of telling them. After getting the answer, Long Haochen could not help but frown. But at this time, he did not have much time to think. After quickly taking off the outer layer of the armor, Long Haochen tore his warrior's clothes into strips. Then, he carried Kair on his back and put on the Holy Spirit armor that could change according to his body shape. It could be said that Kair was completely attached to his body. Long Haochen knew that Kair could not hear him at this time, so he pulled Kair's arms around his neck and used a strip of cloth to tie her mouth. Then, he wrote on her palm, "From this moment onwards, before you fully recover, I will never let you leave my side. I will always carry you on my back and fight. I will never give up and never be separated." Kair's head was close to the side of Long Haochen's neck, and 2 drops of clear tears rolled down her cheeks. Today was the first time she had used the power of the spiritual stove of samsara. When she used the spiritual stove of samsara to the 3rd level and killed the evil demon lord, she felt as if she had lost her 4 senses. It was as if she had returned to the most terrifying period of her life when she had lost her 4 senses. The helplessness and loneliness almost caused her heart to collapse. Coupled with the weakness of her body, Kair seemed to feel the arrival of death. The only thing that kept her heart from collapsing was that trace of hope. The hope that Long Haochen could return alive. He had returned. He had returned in the end. While Kair was enduring the pain of loneliness, helplessness, and no sound, no smell, and no sight, he had returned. When his familiar scent appeared in Kair's senses, Kair's heart trembled. The trace of hope in her heart also became a flame of hope that rose and burned. When Long Haochen kissed her lips and transferred the elixir of the Great Recovery Pill into her body, the warmth brought by the Great Recovery Pill and Long Haochen's familiar scent finally made Kair feel completely different from when she had cultivated the spiritual stove of samsara. At this moment, when she felt the words that Long Haochen had written on her palm, Kair's heart was no longer moved. It was a kind of happiness where their hearts were connected. "My fool, as long as I have him, Even if the whole world gives up on me, I won't be alone. There could only be one reason for a woman to selflessly give up on a man, and that was love. Feeling Kai Air's long legs wrap around his waist, that soft and full feeling made the pain in Long Houchen's heart lessen a little. However, when he raised his head and looked at the rapidly approaching demon cavalrymen, the killing intent in his eyes was reignited. It's these bastards, it's them that made my Kai Air need 7 months to return to normal. It's them, it's them. With a buzzing sound, blue rain and hibiscus of light appeared in Long Houchen's palms again. With another flash of light, the Holy Spirit sword also appeared in his left hand. His figure flashed, and he landed on Hao Yue's back. The light elemental spirit Yiting had been dutifully releasing the spirit-gathering halo to help him recover his spiritual power. It could recover up to 20 points of spiritual power every second. In just a short while, Long Houchen's spiritual power had almost recovered by half. The enemies were getting closer and closer. On the other side of the cave, Lin Xin glared at Lin Xin with her almond-shaped eyes. Are you a piece of trash? Don't tell me you can't even cast a fireball spell? Do you know how much life force Yi Jun used to confine the demon commander? If not for Houchen's timely return, we would have all died here today. Are you really a 5th-grade magician? You're not fit to be called a demon hunter. It was no wonder that Lin Xin was so angry. She had seen the situation in the cave clearly and had rushed back as fast as she could to provide support. Lin Xion's weakness in using the defying ring of fire at the last moment had thoroughly infuriated the unyielding punishment knight. In a situation where everyone had given their all, only Lin Xion hadn't released a powerful attack. With his cultivation, if he had been able to release a few powerful fire spells at that time, he might have been able to heavily injure the demon commander. Lin Xion's complexion was somewhat pale. Hearing Lin Xion's angry accusations, he didn't say a word. Say something. Are you a man or not? Your control over magic is so strong, and you're a 5th-grade magician. Why don't you know a single offensive spell? I really regret not using all my strength to stop Houchen. Enough, Lin Xion. Han Yu struggled to stand up. Wang Yuan, Sima Xian, and Chun Inger also gathered around him. Lin Xion, you should know that Lin Xion is a potioneering apothecary. Why do you think the few of us were so much stronger than Dian Yin and lasted so long? That's because we took the medicinal pills provided by Lin Xion. Lin Xion doesn't know how to attack, but without him, we wouldn't have been able to last until Houchen returned. Lin Xion is a member of our 21st General Grade Monster Hunters. His efforts are obvious to all. He is also an indispensable part of our group. Everyone has their own shortcomings. Why can't he have them? Lin Xion said angrily. Yes, everyone has their shortcomings, but attacking is a magician's duty. As a high-explosive fire magician, he doesn't even know a basic fireball spell. Why is that? I just want him to give me a reason that can convince me. If one day, Houchen can't defend against the enemy's attacks and has to rely on his own attacks to finish off the enemy, what should I do? He can obviously strengthen his attack, so why must he be weak? I don't want my brother to look at him in despair one day. Okay, I'll tell you. Lin Xion was almost shouting. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Hanyu. His body was trembling violently, and his pale face was flushed. I don't know any offensive spells, not a single one. You're right. My situation is different from Sima's. It's because he can't learn healing spells, but it's not that I can't learn them. As long as I'm willing, I can learn any fire magic that my strength can reach. But I don't want to learn I can't learn. After a slight pause, Lin Xion's eyes were filled with tears. My parents, when they were in the magic temple, were even more talented than me. When they were only 30 years old, they had already successfully broken through to the 6th rank and were advancing towards the 7th rank. They were known as the leaders of the younger generation. My father was best at all kinds of offensive spells, and he spent his whole life researching powerful fire magic. One day, he made a mistake. He accidentally detonated a huge amount of compressed fire element. At that time, my mother happened to bring me to find him. In order to protect me, my mother used her own body to block the terrifying explosion, and she and my father died in that disaster. That year, although I was only 5 years old, I can never forget the terrifying explosion of the fire element. If it wasn't for offensive spells, how could I have lost my parents? If it wasn't for offensive spells, I would still have a happy family. If it wasn't for offensive spells, I would still have a happy family. I didn't learn offensive spells because I didn't want to follow in their footsteps. I didn't want my friends and family to die under my spells one day. From then on, no matter how my grandfather forced me, I refused to learn any offensive spells until now. But I'm not useless. I will use everything I have to help my team. If one day the situation you mentioned really happens, then I will definitely die in front of everyone and use my corpse to prove what I said today. After saying this, Lin Xin was already sobbing. Han Yu sighed, gently patted his shoulder, and said to Lin Xin, I can understand your feelings, but why do you have to open up the scars in his heart? If it wasn't for special reasons, why wouldn't he learn offensive spells? We don't ask, not because we don't have doubts, but we will choose to trust our friends. We will always be like this. Lin Xin will always be a part of us monster hunters. Chapter 85. Long Haochen quietly stood on Hao Yue's back and stared at the approaching great demon cavalryman. His killing intent became stronger and stronger. Feeling Kai Er's soft body on his back, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. He had never hated anything as much as he did now. But his hatred for these great demon cavalrymen had reached its peak. For me, and for me again, Kai suffered such great harm. Even if I have to bleed to the last drop of my blood, I won't let them hurt Kai again. I want to kill them. I want to kill all the demons. The enemies were getting closer and closer. Although Long Haochen didn't have any vision enhancement skills, his vision had always been good. Now, he could already distinguish the strength of the enemies. There were 30 great demon cavalrymen, the same number as before. The one leading the group was a Tier 6 demon commander. There were no other demon powerhouses present. Clearly, these 30 great demon cavalrymen were the reserve team from before. They were responsible for providing support and responding to changes. After receiving the Demon Lord's signal, they quickly rushed over. A golden mist of light began to appear around Long Haochen's body. The sudden golden light was as bright and dazzling as a lighthouse in this approaching dawn. The great demon cavalrymen clearly saw it. To them, this golden light that was filled with the aura of light was like the dark spiritual power that Long Haochen saw. Gathering power, Long Haochen could clearly feel the liquid spiritual energy in his body condensing at an astonishing speed. He stabbed the Holy Spirit sword in his left hand into the ground beside Hao Yue and changed to holding blue rain and hibiscus of light with both hands. His entire being had entered a wondrous state. As his cultivation increased, the speed at which he gathered power was much faster than before. The powerful spiritual energy that was constantly condensing was frantically injected into blue rain and hibiscus of light through his hands. Hao Yue's 3 big heads also began to chant at the same time, each chanting a different incantation. The wonderful rhythm didn't affect Long Haochen at all. Instead, it was strangely harmonious. At this time, the cave behind Long Haochen had calmed down. However, Lin Xin, who was standing at the entrance of the cave, had a constantly changing expression. There was regret and guilt in her eyes, but her hands that were holding the 2 swords were still steady. Inside the cave, the gazes of the others were fixed on Long Haochen. They looked at the imposing manner that the figure, which was not too tall and big, brought to them, as if he could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies by himself. Although Long Haochen was the only one who appeared outside to face the enemies, surprisingly, both General Level Number 21 and Soldier Level Number 4 monster hunters felt a sense of security. It was as if, as long as Long Haochen was, no one could hurt them. Everyone was trying to recover their spiritual energy. Lu Shi would release a healing spell whenever she recovered a little spiritual energy. Most of her healing abilities were focused on Dian Yan, who was unconscious. Dian Yan's injuries were quite serious. Taking a direct hit from the demon commander, which had a spiritual energy value of nearly 10,000, was like crashing into a mountain. Not only was his shield broken, both his arms were fractured, and even his sternum and ribs were damaged to a certain extent. His internal organs were shaken out of place. If it wasn't for Lu Shi's timely treatment, he would have died from his internal organs ruptured. Long Haochen, be careful of their spiritual energy combo, Lin Xian shouted in Long Haochen's direction. They had already faced the great demon cavalrymen twice. The first time, the great demon cavalrymen couldn't unleash their full strength under Hao Yue's chaotic elemental stripping magic. The second time, because of Kai Er's strength, the great demon cavalryman's attack was greatly disturbed, and they even killed the enemy's mainstay, the Demon Lord. At that time, if the Demon Lord wasn't afraid of Kai Er's sharp, murderous aura, no one would be able to block the great demon cavalryman's attack with his spiritual energy combo. At this moment, they were facing the great demon cavalryman for the third time. Without Kai Er's harassment, there was no possibility of Hao Yue's sneak attack. Long Haochen was the only one facing the great demon cavalryman. Will he be able to defeat them? Behind the demon commander, there were already 10 great demon cavalrymen lined up neatly, ready to release their spiritual energy combo. The other 20 great demon cavalrymen split into 2 teams and circled around from the sides, forming a 3-sided encirclement. The powerful pressure continued to rise. No matter how they looked at it, Long Haochen didn't seem to be able to block them head-on. At this moment, Hao Yue moved. His huge body carried Long Haochen as he charged towards the demon commander, who was in the spiritual energy combo state. The demon commander was a grade 6 demons expert and could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable. When he saw the intensity of the light element rising around Long Haochen's body, he could determine that the human in front of him definitely couldn't compare to him in terms of spiritual energy, not to mention that he was in the spiritual energy combo state. With a sinister smile, the demon commander rode the nightmare demon horse and charged straight towards Long Haochen. The 10 great demon cavalrymen behind him pointed their spears forward, dark red spiritual energy connected, as if they were one person. They followed the demon commander and charged forward quickly. It must be known that these great demon cavalrymen were the elites of the demons. They had been trained for a long time, and on the battlefield, they were on the same level as the human Brilliant Angel Knight group. With the spiritual energy combo technique, they had caused the Temple League to suffer many losses. Every time they encountered them on the battlefield, the Temple League could only choose to send out their experts to deal with them. Long Haochen was alone. He was only riding Hao Yue and standing on Hao Yue's back. Meanwhile, the dark red flames on the demon commander's body were rising wildly, illuminating an area of tens of square meters. Comparing the momentum of both sides, Long Haochen was obviously much weaker. However, Hao Yue's charge was still full of momentum. It had stopped chanting its incantation, but if one looked closely, they would discover that Hao Yue's 3 heads and 6 eyes had turned completely purple. The surface of the scales on its body was also rippling with a faint layer of purple. The distance between both sides was getting closer and closer. From 100 meters to 50 meters, then 30 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters. Both sides were about to enter each other's attack range. At this moment, all 3 of Hao Yue's heads let out a deafening roar at the same time. One could clearly see a burst of intense purple light abruptly erupting from its 3 heads. Then, a shocking scene unfolded. With Hao Yue's roar, the body of the demon commander, which was originally surrounded by intense dark red flames, trembled, and the enormous spiritual power around its body suddenly disappeared. Meanwhile, the great demon cavalrymen and their nightmare demon horses behind him swayed as though they were drunk. How could they still maintain the spiritual power connection? The golden light instantly pierced through the sky, and the compressed air produced a violent explosion. In the next moment, the sharp whistling stopped below the belly of the nightmare demon horse that the demon commander was riding. The golden light seemed to be fixed in the air. Die! Long Haochen roared, and Hao Yue collided with the demon commander. Strangely, The demon commander with the additional golden line on its body did not move at all until Hao Yue collided with it. The spear in its hand, its body, and the nightmare demon horse were abruptly scattered. It was the same as the demon commander that died in Long Haochen's hands. One slash of the sword. The previous demon commander that died in Long Haochen's hands could be said to have been greatly weakened. In addition to Yi Jun's magic restriction and Lin Xion's resistance ring of fire, Long Haochen's sneak attack was successful. In that case, there was no fluke this time. It was an instant kill in a head-on collision. The demon commander, who was at its peak state and under the effect of spiritual connection, couldn't even receive a single blow from Long Haochen. No one knew what ability Hao Yue released with that roar was, but when it charged past the 10 great demon cavalrymen behind the demon commander with Long Haochen, all that was left was a ground of corpses, including the nightmare demon horse. Not a single corpse was left intact, and these great demon cavalrymen didn't even have much power to resist. After releasing that roar, Hao Yue completely concealed his aura. The color of his eyes returned to normal, and he didn't release any more magic. He seemed to be a little tired. However, what he did was enough. Helping Long Haochen break the demon commander's spiritual power connection determined the direction of this battle. Affected by Hao Yue's roar, the demon commander didn't even have time to release an effective skill before it was cut in half by the Shura slash. The following process was a massacre. Long Haochen only used a few skills: charge, assault, lightning stab, and cross slash. The few low-level punishment knight skills that Long Haochen used were extremely powerful, with the light elemental fairy Yuting supporting him from behind. Using these skills that consumed less spiritual energy wasn't much of a burden to Long Haochen at all. The Azura slash that he had accumulated left him with only a few hundred spiritual energy points, but with his powerful spiritual energy recovery speed, it was more than enough to deal with the remaining enemies. Don't forget that Long Haochen's cultivation base was getting closer and closer to the Sixth Order. Everyone in the cave saw a dazzling scene. A golden figure was standing on the mountainside, looking disdainfully at the enemies. As the golden light flashed, the enemy's flesh and blood flew everywhere. Furthermore, he was carrying Kair, who had lost her 4 senses. One person, he was just one person. With the help of his mount, he was actually slaughtering the powerful great demon cavalryman. The Sixth Order demon commander was actually killed in an instant. This was completely out of the Fifth Order knight's range. Feeling the cold killing intent bursting from Long Haochen's body, the 21st general level monster hunters were more excited, while the 4th soldier level monster hunters were more ashamed. The longer they were in contact, the more the 4th soldier level monster hunters felt the difference between them and the 21st general level monster hunters. Long Haochen and Kair, this pair of lovers, had always played the role of stabilizing the situation. The other members also displayed their strong abilities. More importantly, they were united. The whole process only took 10 minutes. Long Haochen did not let the last enemy escape. The last great demon knight died under the Holy Spirit sword that he threw out, staking it all in one throw. From the looks of it, Long Haochen still had strength to spare. The light elemental fairy, Yuting, had been dutifully helping him recover. Without removing Kair from his back, Long Haochen shook off the blood on his sword and strode back to the entrance of the cave with Hao Yue. Long Haochen did not have any powerful group healing spells, but that did not mean that Hao Yue could not. A holy light illumination skill instantly filled every corner of the cave. Everyone get ready. I'll clean up the battlefield. We have to leave this place as soon as possible. Long Haochen's voice was a little hoarse. After saying this, he turned around and walked out, storing the corpses of the great demon cavalrymen and nightmare horses into the Eternal Melody. That's right, the Eternal Melody itself was a storage magic tool. As for how big it was, Long Haochen could not feel it with his current mental strength. After the massacre, Long Haochen could feel it more clearly. Every time he killed a great demon cavalryman, the soul of the great demon cavalryman would immediately be absorbed by the Eternal Melody. Moreover, after killing an enemy, The soul of the enemy seemed to be absorbed more intensely than from the corpses on the battlefield. Since there was no way to stop it, he could only pretend that it did not happen. He really did not understand the energy of the soul. With the help of the eternal melody, Long Houchen cleaned up the battlefield very quickly. When he returned to his companions, apart from Jin Yin, who was still unconscious, the others had at least regained their ability to move. Lin Xian seemed to have recovered from his previous excitement. Seeing Long Houchen easily clean up the battlefield and collect the corpses of the great demon cavalrymen and nightmare horses, he could not help but widen his eyes. With his back facing the others, he gestured to Long Houchen. Long Houchen glanced at him and nodded silently. "How is everyone?" Long Houchen asked. Han Yu said, "Apart from Jin Yin, who is seriously injured, the others have no problem walking. It's just that it will be a little difficult for them to continue fighting. Yuan, Sima, and I have all taken bloodthirst pills and spear explosion pills. I'm afraid we will be weak for a while. Ing Air's Madol Piglet is also heavily injured. It will not be able to absorb magic crystals to fight for a while." Lu Shi said, "Our situation here is slightly better. Han Daosi and Lin Xian still have the strength to fight. King Yi burned his life force and fell into a coma. As his spiritual energy recovers, I will need at least 6 hours before I can use the group healing skill again. Dian Yin would need at least 7 days of my treatment before he would be able to recover his battle prowess. Xiao Ma is about the same as me. She also needs about 6 hours to recover her spiritual power. In this battle, although no one from the 2 Monster Hunters teams died, it could be said that they were all crippled. The only ones who could really fight were Long Houchen, Lin Xian, and Han Daosi. Kai was even more miserable than Dian Yin, who was seriously injured. She lost her 4 senses and needed 7 months to recover. Long Houchen nodded silently. After thinking for a while, he said, "I will let Hao Yue bring Dian Yin and King Yi. We will immediately set off, cross the mountain, and go deep into the rear. Without an obvious target like the Wailing Howl Cave, it will be easier for us to hide in the mountains. We will try to return when everyone has recovered." Lu Shi nodded silently, but there was a hint of hesitation in her eyes when she looked at Long Houchen. Long Houchen knew what he was thinking. "I have recorded everything that happened in the Wailing Howl Cave. This is obviously not a place that we can fully investigate. After we settle down, I will share the scouting gem for everyone to see." The recording of the scouting gem could not be faked. At least, none of them had the ability to do so. That would require powerful alchemy. Hearing Long Houchen's words, Lu Shi suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He just nodded at Long Houchen. Long Houchen said, "Let's go now. The magic crystals from the enemy corpses that I collected just now will be 30% for your team." Lu Shi hurriedly said, "No need. We didn't do anything." Long Houchen shook his head. His tone was obviously a little tougher. "We are a team now. Everything will be distributed according to what we agreed on. Without you, my companions would not be able to hold on until I return. That's settled. Let's go." The backlash from Kai Er's spiritual stove caused Long Houchen to be extremely irritated. He was less gentle than usual, but more domineering. But with his strength and ability, saying such words would only give people a feeling that it was only natural, even making the 4th Soldier Grey Demon Hunt squad feel secretly grateful. With so many nightmare horses and great demon cavalrymen, 1/3 of the magic crystals was not a small amount. Everyone continued on their way, although most of them were very weak and injured. But as professionals, their physical strength was also far beyond that of ordinary people. Under the light of the dawn, the group of 13 did not attempt to leave the mountain range. Instead, under Long Houchen's lead, they continued to go deeper into the mountain range. After continuously climbing over 2 mountain peaks, they stopped at a place where there were a few shrubs. This was a valley with a natural crack in the stone wall. It was just right for them to rest. When they settled down, it was already bright outside. Lu Shi became the busiest person. While constantly recovering her spiritual power, she also treated everyone. What made Long Houchen slightly relaxed was that Kai gradually regained her ability to move. At this time, he sat not far from the entrance of the crack in the stone wall, letting Kai lean on him. Kai seemed very quiet. Her eyes could not see, her mouth could not speak, her ears could not hear, and her nose could not smell. But she did not seem to care at all. She just quietly nestled in Long Hao-chen's arms. Everyone else was resting. Han Daosi was in charge of keeping watch. Long Hao-chen held Kai-er's hand. Using his finger, he slowly wrote on her palm. He wrote down the entire process of his experience in the fearful Howling Cave. Kai-er could not hear, but she could feel it. She seemed to enjoy this feeling. She let Long Hao-chen scratch on her palm. Nestling in his arms, she was like the obedient Madol piglet in Chun Ying-er's arms. Lin Xin, come here. I have something to tell you. Lin Xin suddenly waved at Lin Xin, indicating him to follow her. Lin Xin froze for a moment. He frowned, but still followed Lin Xin into the depths of the crack. Long Hao-chen only glanced at them in confusion. He did not say anything. In his heart, Lin Xin was definitely one of the most trustworthy people. He understood this elder sister's personality very well. Furthermore, he did not know what had happened in the cave. He continued to write on Kai-er's palm. Everyone else was cultivating and did not pay any attention to them. The crack was very deep. It continued to extend for nearly 200 meters. Looking up into the sky, one could see the miraculous scene of a single line in the sky. Lin Xin continued to walk in. Only when everyone else was blocked by the stone wall did she stop. Lin Xin stopped not far behind her with an indifferent expression, simply using his fingers to comb his long dark green hair, braiding it into a braid. Leaning against the stone wall, he said, "Why did you call me here? To silence me?" Lin Xin said in annoyance, "You're a man. Why do you keep your hair so long? And you even combed it into a braid. From the side, you look even more like a woman than me." Lin Xin curled his lips and said, "This is called being handsome, okay? If you don't understand, don't talk nonsense." Lin Xin said in disdain, "Handsome, my ass. We'll talk again when you're better looking than Hao-chen." The muscles on Lin Xion's face twitched. "Did you call me here just to attack me? Leader is better looking than me, but he seems to be more like a girl than me." Lin Xian suddenly fell silent. Looking at Lin Xian, she did not speak for a long time. Lin Xian felt the strange atmosphere. He could not help but look at her in confusion. "I'm sorry." Lin Xian lowered her head. "I was wrong before. I shouldn't have scolded you before figuring out the truth. I shouldn't have reminded you of your painful past." Lin Xian's body slightly trembled, and a trace of pain that couldn't be erased appeared in the depths of his eyes. He also slightly lowered his head, flinging his combed braid behind his back. "It's fine. There will always be people who will question me. Saying it out will make me feel better," Lin Xian said bitterly. Lin Xian slowly walked to his side. "You should be punished for your mistakes. Why don't you scold me too? Or hit me? I'll accept it." Her expression was very serious. Standing in front of Lin Xian, her charming face brimming with heroic spirit had the appearance of someone who was ready to die for justice. The corner of Lin Xian's mouth twitched. "Big sister, stop fooling around. Can I beat you? I won't fight back." Lin Xian hurriedly emphasized. "That's it. I'm going back," Lin Xian said impatiently. As he spoke, he turned around and walked back in the direction he came from. Lin Xian stomped her feet. "I hate the feeling of owing others. If you don't return it, how can I face your companions?" "Enough." Lin Xian suddenly turned around and said angrily, "What's the use of scolding you and beating you up? You're right. I'm a coward. I don't have the guts to learn offensive magic. Even if I hit you and scold you, does that mean that the pain in my heart will lessen in the slightest?" "Woo!" Lin Xian's words suddenly came to an abrupt halt, his originally large eyes instantly widening even further. If someone was here, they would be able to witness an extremely strange scene. A heroic knight, at this time, pressed the back of the magician's head with one hand, forced his body to hit the stone wall, and then kissed his lips. Lin Xian's brain seemed to short-circuit at this moment. Lin Xian's fiery lips were like magma. melting his anger and the sadness in his heart. At this moment, he felt his whole body go limp, and his vision went white. His whole body was pressed against the stone wall, as if he had become a mural. Lips parted, Lin Xian quickly took a few steps back, and her armor hit the stone wall on the other side of the crack, making a loud bang. Her pretty face had already turned a fiery red, just like her rose unicorn. Although she was not panting heavily, her full chest was constantly moving up and down. It was clear that her emotions were not calm at this moment. "Is this enough?" Lin Xian said fiercely, but no matter how you looked at it, it felt like she was putting on a brave front. "You don't want to beat me up, and I don't have as much money as you, so I don't have anything valuable to give you. Is this enough? I don't know you anymore." After saying this, she staggered back, but she hadn't taken more than a few steps when she seemed to have thought of something. Turning around to look at Lin Xian's still picturesque appearance, she couldn't help but angrily say, "Dead person, don't look like you've suffered a loss. This is this old lady's first kiss." As she said this, she threw a pebble at Lin Xian, smashing it on his leg. Then, she turned around and ran as fast as she could. Lin Xian turned his head stiffly and looked at Lin Xian's disappearing figure. His pale face suddenly turned bright red. I was kissed by force." He touched his lips, and that burning feeling seemed to still be there. After an unknown period of time, he held onto the stone wall and walked out. His feet still felt weak. He bumped into Chen-Ning-Er. Chen-Ning-Er looked at him with a puzzled expression. "Brother Yu Yao, what's wrong? You're not having a fever, are you? Why is your face so red?" "I'm fine." Lin Xian touched his burning face and found a place to sit down with a dazed expression. He looked around, but Lin Xian was nowhere to be seen. After 3 whole days, the 2 Monster Hunters teams had basically recovered their combat strength. Of course, this did not include King Yi and Dianyan. Of these 2, one was exhausted and needed to recuperate continuously, while the other was seriously injured. But at least he could move, just that he couldn't face the enemy. These 2 days, Lin Xian and Lin Xian maintained a certain distance between each other, but they couldn't help but steal glances at each other. The others weren't blind. They could naturally feel the strange atmosphere between them. But now that they were in danger, everyone was trying their best to recover their strength. No one had the mind to pay attention to this. They just thought that after Lin Xian scolded Lin Xian, their relationship was a little awkward. But if one observed closely, they would notice that Lin Xian would blush for no reason. "Everyone, come over here." Long Haochen stood beside Kai and raised his voice to call out. Everyone immediately looked at him and quickly gathered around him. It's been 3 days, except for Kai King Yi, and Dianyan. Everyone else has more or less recovered. I believe everyone is curious about what I saw in the Wailing Howl of Fear cave, and what's in that cave. I'll show it to you now. He felt slightly guilty, but Long Haochen would never really reveal the secret of the Tower of Eternity. If he did that, it might not be a good thing for his companions in front of him. It might even bring them a lot of trouble. After listening to Long Haochen's words, everyone looked at him curiously. At the same time, there was a bit of admiration. As the leader of the 21st General Rank Monster Hunters, and the only person who had entered the cave to explore, it could be said that if Long Haochen wanted to hide everything he found, the 4th Soldier Rank Monster Hunters members wouldn't be able to say anything. Without Long Haochen, they would have lost their lives long ago. But Long Haochen was open and honest about everything he found, which meant that he didn't have the intention to swallow the mission merit. The scouting gem projected an image under the infusion of Long Haochen's spiritual power, and the dark world of the Wailing Howl of Fear cave appeared in everyone's eyes. It had to be said that the scouting gem was indeed a rare treasure. This thing not only recorded images, but also recorded sounds. They watched as Long Haochen appeared in the image and began to explore the situation in the Wailing Howl of Fear cave. Because the entire image was very long, Long Haochen sped up the whole process under the control of his spiritual power. When Long Haochen began to suffer the attack of the howling in the cave, everyone couldn't help but gasp when they saw the intense spiritual power fluctuations around his body in the image. Although they hadn't really experienced it, they could imagine how much pressure Long Haochen was under. Long Haochen, who was under the influence, released the holy light shield. At this time, he suddenly paused the image. Under everyone's shocked gaze, he said in a low voice, "It can be said that the results of this exploration aren't ideal. I'm also not sure if this image will be able to give us an evaluation for completing the mission. But in the wailing howl of Fear Cave, I learned a skill while listening to the howling. Since we came here together and worked hard to complete this mission, I'm willing to share this skill for everyone to learn. At least you didn't come here for nothing. As for whether you can learn it or not, it depends on your luck." One could imagine the shock brought by Long Haochen's words, especially the 6-soldier level 4 monster hunters. The way they looked at him had completely changed. Low, she said, almost without hesitation, "Leader Long, you don't have to do this. Self-created skills don't need to be shared with anyone. This is an ability that belongs to you." If it was under other circumstances, perhaps Long Haochen wouldn't be willing to share the ability that he had painstakingly learned. However, because of the secret of the Tower of Eternity, he felt a little guilty towards the soldier-level 4 monster hunters. The kindness in his heart made him do something similar to compensation. Long Haochen smiled and said, "This ability that I've learned is not something that anyone can learn. Relatively speaking, it's more suitable for warriors in close combat. Leader Liu, you don't have to decline. Since I said it, I will definitely do it. Everyone, listen carefully. I will tell you the whole process of my understanding. Whether you can learn it or not is up to you. I will name this skill Ripple of Light." As he said that, a close-fitting holy light shield was released from Long Haochen's body. He signaled to Lin Xine, "Sister, attack my holy light shield. Slowly, so that everyone can see it clearly." Lin Xine looked at Long Haochen with some emotion. Her brother's biggest weakness was that he was too dazzling. This was a self-created skill. However, she still did as Long Haochen said. In her eyes, Long Haochen's leadership temperament was becoming stronger and stronger. Since he wanted to do this, he naturally had his reasons. The fiery red heavy sword pressed against the holy light shield. Lin Xine activated her spiritual power and slowly cut into the holy light shield. Just as her heavy sword came into contact with the holy light shield, there was suddenly a buzzing sound. Then, to Lin Xine's shock, the heavy sword in her hand actually slid away. It was not able to cut into Long Haochen's holy light shield at all. Everyone watched carefully. They clearly saw that the moment Lin Xine's spiritual power entered the holy light shield, the entire holy light shield showed a violent vibration. Lin Xine's sword also slid away during this vibration. This completely surpassed the defensive ability of the holy light shield. Long Haochen said, "This skill, Ripple of Light, is something I learned from the shrill howl in the Cave of Fear and Sorrow." Why does the shrill howl give us such a strong impact? Because of the high-frequency vibration of the sound waves. But what if we can use our own spiritual power to simulate this high-frequency vibration? Then, Ripple of Light will appear. It can be used for both offensive and defensive skills at the same time. Under the condition of using a certain amount of spiritual power, it can also greatly increase our own offensive and defensive abilities. Afterwards, Long Haochen completely explained his understanding of Ripple of Light. He also used it many times, showing the power of Ripple of Light in front of everyone. Just as Long Haochen said, Ripple of Light was not suitable for magic professions. Only melee professions could use it. Everyone also clearly felt the powerful effects of this skill. Han Daosi felt the terrifying attack power of Ripple of Light, while Dian Yin, a shield warrior, felt the benefits of a large increase in defense. The detection gem continued to play the entire video. Long Haochen also explained his own feelings. The Tower of Eternity appeared at the end of the video, right up to the moment when the vengeful spirit pounced on Long Haochen. At that time, I only felt a stabbing pain in my brain, as if the vengeful spirit wanted to invade my body. At this time, Long Haoyue arrived and used Soul Shock to chase away the 2 vengeful spirits. After that, I fell into a coma for a period of time. When I woke up, the tower had already disappeared. From the beginning to the end, I didn't understand what it was. The detection gem's recording ability seemed to have been affected. It didn't record what happened after I fell into a coma. But one thing I can be sure of is that even if the tower still exists, it's not something I can face with my level of cultivation. Long Houchin had already thought of this story. Although he felt a little guilty saying it now, he still hardened his heart when he thought of the impact necromancers had on the human world. He told them his half-truth, half-lie story. After listening to his story, surprisingly, no one questioned him. The video showed the power of Howl. They knew that it was impossible for them to reach the bottom of the cave, let alone do better than Long Houchin. The mission could only be like this. Honda Osi said with some embarrassment, "Leader Long, since it's like this, we should at least complete half of the mission by returning this video. That skill of yours, can it?" Chapter 86. Honda Osi had clearly spoken the thoughts of all the melee fighters. Looking at their fiery gazes, Long Houchin smiled and nodded. "All right, then I'll give everyone some pointers. After resting for a while, we'll think of a way to return to the Alliance." For a moment, everyone focused their attention on learning the Ripple of Light skill. As for their gratitude towards Long Houchin, they quietly buried it in their hearts. In the history of the Temple League, learning a secret skill as a group or a secret skill comprehended by an individual had never happened before. At times like this, individual comprehension was completely displayed. A day later, Hanyu was the first to comprehend the mysteries of Ripple of Light, followed by Sima Xian. Although Sima Xian was a cleric, he was a violent cleric. He had comprehended the mysteries of Ripple of Light almost at the same time as Hanyu. Comparatively speaking, as a cleric, comprehending a knight's self-created skill was much more difficult than Hanyu, but he was only a moment slower than Hanyu. Long Houchin couldn't help but laugh at this scene. When a person loses something, they can often gain something else. Sima Xian, who couldn't learn healing magic, had a unique talent for learning offensive skills. On the other hand, the three melee fighters on the side of the four soldier monster hunters still hadn't found the slightest clue. Lin Xian was the same. Long Houchin didn't say it out loud, but in his heart, he understood that a person's comprehension was closely related to their innate internal spiritual energy and attribute. The reason why Sima Xian and Hanyu were able to comprehend so quickly was mainly because their innate internal spiritual energy had reached 80 after being suppressed by him. Moreover, both of them were of the light attribute. All of his comprehension was based on the conditions of the light attribute, so it was naturally much easier for them to learn compared to others. 3 days passed in a row. Dian Yin and Honda Osi had successively given up on comprehending rippling light. Although Lin Xian and Wang Yuan still hadn't managed to learn it, the two women seemed to be competing with each other, unrelenting in their practice every day. Their goal was to increase their attack power. They had all witnessed the immense effects of Ripple of Light. Moreover, Long Houchin was so devoted to them. They had already made up their minds that they would not give up no matter what. Of course, perseverance could not completely make up for the gap in comprehension. It was hard to say whether they would be able to learn this skill in the end. But at least there was hope of success if he tried. Luck, she had been watching coldly from the sidelines. After so many things had happened, he secretly sighed in his heart. It seemed that his team of monster hunters would not be able to catch up with Long Houchin and the others no matter what. Unless he had a fortuitous encounter in the future, he might have a chance. It had already been 7 days since they had come here to rest. Honda Osi had secretly gone to the front to investigate. The terror howling cavern had already been completely controlled by the army of demons. He didn't dare to get too close, but the information he sent back told everyone that at least 3 demon lords had appeared in the terror howling cavern. Moreover, it was very likely that there were existences even stronger than the demon lords there. Obviously, the loss of over 100 great demon knight had caused the demons to be really angry. Moreover, they were also determined to obtain the terror howling cavern. Luck, she went to find Long Houchin alone. "Leader Long, there is currently an army of demons outside, but it shouldn't affect us. Dian Yin and Yi Jun have more or less recovered. Apart from the damage to our equipment, our 2 teams are basically in peak condition. Shouldn't we think of a way to return?" Long Houchin nodded. That's right. It's not good to stay here for long. However, Big Sister and Yuan Yuan are still comprehending Ripple of Light. If we interrupt them now, I'm afraid they won't have the chance to comprehend it in the future. If we want to return to the Alliance safely as soon as possible, the best way is to go through the route of the Moon Devils. Luxi was surprised. You mean, we should go find the president of Yi Chamber of Commerce? Long Haochen nodded. That's right. She has been restricted by Kair. We don't have to worry about her playing any tricks. If we have her cover, we should be able to save a lot of effort when we return to the Alliance. Luxi said, but there is still a certain degree of danger. If that Yi recklessly exposed us, wouldn't it be? Long Haochen said, I have also thought of this. Although the possibility is extremely small, we have to guard against it. I plan to go to the Moon Devil's place alone. Yu left me an address. It is at the Moon Devil Palace next to the Central Province's Demon God Palace. I will go find her myself. If everything is normal, I will come back to pick everyone up. It will be safer this way. And with the blood contract between Hao Yue and me, even if I encounter danger, I will have no problem escaping. Luxi looked deeply at Long Haochen and smiled bitterly. Compared to you, the leader, I am simply a waste. Long Haochen patted him on the shoulder and said, Leader Lu, don't say that. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have come this far. We are members of a team. This time, it is everyone's credit that we can gain something from the demons. We are a united group, and everyone needs your treatment. That's settled. Tonight, I will leave under the cover of the night. I will leave this side to you. Kair has lost her 4 senses, and she can't teleport with Hao Yue, so I must leave her behind. If there is any danger here, Hao Yue will inform me immediately and teleport me back. Luxi nodded and said, Don't worry, I will take good concealment measures. The simple exchange between the two leaders had already determined the direction of the team. Long Haochen returned to Kair's side, gently took her hand, and wrote his decision in her palm. Kair snuggled up to him and gently moved her slender fingers in his palm. Come back early. She didn't pester him, nor did she insist on going with him. This was Kair, the Kair who always thought for Long Haochen. Gently hugging her and feeling the softness of her delicate body, Long Haochen's tense expression finally relaxed a little. He had decided that after returning this time, before Kair recovered her lost 4 senses, he would not lead the team to carry out any more missions. He would stay in the sacred city to accompany her through these difficult days. Lin Xin, come here. Long Haochen called out to Lin Xin, who was working hard to refine medicinal pills not far away. Lin Xin's tools for refining medicinal pills were carried with him. In order to let him refine with peace of mind, Long Haochen specially opened up a flat space for him. Hearing Long Haochen's call, Lin Xin hurriedly ran over. Leader, the results these days are not bad. Although we went through a lot of difficulties and obstacles this time, we obtained more good materials than before. It's just that the conditions here are relatively simple, and I am not in the mood to study new drugs. But at least I can refine some of the medicinal pills from before. My main focus is on refining the Great Recovery Pill. I should be able to refine the first batch today. I estimate that 7 or 8 pills should not be a problem. Just as Long Haochen said, in the process of carrying out this mission, everyone showed an indispensable role. Lin Xin's pills always played an important role at crucial moments, and this was something that everyone could see. Of course, the spiritual explosion pill and the bloodthirst pill had certain side effects. For this team, the Great Recovery Pill was more important. After all, the first 2 types of medicinal pills still had some remaining. They could get more Great Recovery Pills and distribute them to the soldier level 4 monster hunters. Of course, they had to exchange for them with merit points. 1 pill was worth 100 merit points. This was the price set by Lin Xin. Anyway, according to him, this was an extremely low price. Lin Xin definitely had the nature of a profiteer. In the end, he did not collect the merit points of the soldier level 4 monster hunters. On the condition that each of them was provided with 3 Great Recovery Pills, he deprived the soldier level 4 monster hunters of the right to obtain all the carcasses of the demonic beasts. This also included the demonic beast carcasses that had been collected. Apart from the demonic crystals, the demonic beast carcasses that Lu Shi and the rest had obtained from their storage devices were all exchanged by Lin Xin in this way. He would definitely make a profit, but only Lin Xin himself knew how much he would make. Long Haochen nodded and said, I didn't call you here to ask you about the situation of refining medicinal pills. We don't know much about this. You can do as you see fit. Lin Xin was stunned and asked doubtfully, Captain, is there anything else? Long Haochen glanced at the others not far away and said in a low voice, I want to ask you, what's going on between you and my sister? You guys have been acting weird these few days. Lin Xin was startled, almost jumping up. His face immediately became as red as a cooked prawn. Really? Long Haochen was shocked. No, Lin Xin hurriedly explained. What can happen between me and Sister Lin Xin? There's nothing going on, really. Long Haochen said unhappily, Your performance is really not that good? If there's a mirror, look at yourself. Your face is even redder than a little girl's. You don't want to tell me, right? Fine, I won't force you. You can go. I'll ask my sister later. If I find out that you bullied her, humph. Lin Xin smiled bitterly and said, Captain, great captain, please let me go. It's too embarrassing. I really don't want to talk about it. Long Haochen's face darkened and said, Lin Xin, my sister scolded you. She's in the wrong. However, our two teams are currently carrying out a mission together. We need to help each other and trust each other. I don't want you to hold any grudges. Otherwise, if we encounter any danger again, it's very likely that we'll be wiped out. Do you understand? Lin Xin couldn't help but say, Boss, it's not that serious. Why would I hold a grudge against Sister Lin Xin? Aye. Long Haochen looked straight at him and waited for him to continue. Lin Xin stole a glance at the others. In the end, he still stomped his foot and said, Fine, then I'll tell you. I was taken advantage of by your sister. She forced a kiss on me. Long Haochen didn't expect this to be the result. His exclamation was a little too loud. The others couldn't help but look over. Boss, lower your voice. Otherwise, I won't be able to face others. Lin Xin said awkwardly. His face turned even redder. Long Haochen's face turned ugly. Lin Xin, we don't care about your narcissism. However, you can't be that narcissistic, can you? How can my sister force a kiss on you? She's a girl. You're slandering her innocence. Lin Xin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Boss, do you think I'm lying to you? If it weren't for you, would I be able to join our monster hunters? Listen to me clearly. He really couldn't hide it anymore. He moved closer to Long Haochen's ear and told him about the misunderstanding between him and Lin Xin. Later, when Lin Xin found him, everything that happened between the two of them. After listening to his story, Long Haochen's eyes were a little dull. Looking at Lin Xin, who was diligently practicing not far away, he couldn't help but be speechless for a moment. What the hell is this? Sister, you're too tough. Lin Xin was afraid that Long Haochen wouldn't believe him. He imitated Lin Xion's action at that time. He hooked his head and said, Boss, look. At that time, Sister Xion did this. One of her hands hugged the back of my head. She's a knight. I'm just a magician. Even if I wanted to struggle, I couldn't. Then, looking at his face full of grief and indignation, Long Haochen said in a bad mood, You're the one who took advantage of her, okay? My sister is a girl. It's her first kiss. This is already an advantage for you. What else are you dissatisfied with? Lin Xin said in a low voice, Boss, there's nothing I'm dissatisfied with. But I actually didn't earn anything. It's also my first kiss. Long Haochen looked at him with a face full of disbelief. You think it's your first kiss? Do you still remember the first time we met? The girls in the auction hall all wanted to eat you up. If you say you're a playboy, I believe it. But how can you have your first kiss? I don't think you've had 10,000 kisses. Lin Xin cried out in injustice. Boss, I'm telling the truth. At most, I'm just a little narcissistic. But I'm still very clean. Grandpa is very strict. If I really have a scandal with a girl, he definitely won't let me go. Moreover, although I'm older than you, I'm not even 20 years old. I'm not that precocious. If I spent every day with a woman, would I still be able to become such an excellent potioneering master? Long Haochen looked at him with a strange expression. After a long while, he tentatively asked, "Then what do you plan to do? Just act as if this never happened?" Lin Xin snappily said, "This is my first kiss. It's my first time. How can you act as if it never happened? Moreover, it was forcibly taken away." I. Long Haochen rubbed his head and said, "Okay, you continue to refine medicine. I can't do anything about this. You could do as you see fit. I only have one request. You're not allowed to hurt my sister. Otherwise, I won't let you go." Lin Xin gently nodded. He suddenly lowered his voice and said, "Actually, I quite like older girls. Sister Xin is also very beautiful. Boss, you say if I were to pursue Sister Xin, would I have a chance? Don't ask me. I don't know. However, if you try, there's a 50% chance. If you don't try, there's no chance at all. If you really want to, then you can try. Tonight, I'm going to the Moon Devils to find a way out for us. You can think about it first." Lin Xin said, "I've been thinking about it these days. I don't know why, but since being kissed by Sister Xin, I suddenly found that she's getting more and more beautiful. I want to take the initiative to pursue her, but I don't know how to say it. I really don't have any experience in this. Boss, can you teach me?" Long Haobao snappily said, "How can I teach you? If you don't have experience, then do you think I have experience?" Lin Xin without hesitation said, "Of course you have experience. How old is Kai? She can be coaxed by you. How can I not have experience?" Scram. Long Haochen kicked the smirking Lin Xin away. He hugged Kai and no longer paid attention to him. As the time they spent together increased, Lin Xinlong's understanding of Lin Xinlong and Haochen also increased. Whether it was appearance, character, ability, or family, he could be considered a good match for Lin Xin. If he was sincere, it wouldn't be a bad thing. Everything would depend on fate. He didn't intend to get involved. He believed that his sister would grasp it well. As the sun set in the west, the night gradually seized control of the earth. Long Haochen also quietly left the valley and headed into the distance. The Howling Fear Cave itself was within the range of the central province of the demons. He had already marked the direction on the map. He went around the side of the mountain and then flew towards the core area of the central province. With the improvement of his cultivation, Long Haochen's overall ability had greatly increased. Although he wasn't riding Haoyue, he could run faster than a galloping horse in the wilderness. At this time, he had put on the magic eyes of the Moon Devils and the clothes that Yu Yi had given him. Under the cover of the night, he flew towards his destination. The night was beautiful. The night sky was clear, the stars were bright, and the crescent moon emitted a hazy moonlight. Under the starlight, it emitted a soft and beautiful color. Although Long Haochen had left, his heart was still with Kai. This time, he had given Haoyue a death order. No matter what, he was not allowed to leave Kai. If anything happened, he would be able to return to Kai-Er's side as soon as possible. He would not allow anyone to hurt his Kai-Er again. Galloping was not lonely for Long Haochen. In his heart, he recalled the entire process of this mission and summed up the gains and losses. There was no doubt that this mission was out of his control from the beginning. The wandering merchants that he originally wanted to rely on had encountered big trouble. What followed was a series of battles. But overall, they were still lucky. At least, no one had died until now. Tough battles were the best way to hone one's will and ability. Long Haochen believed that as long as they could return alive this time, whether it was the 21st General level or the 4th Soldier level, these two monster hunters would have great progress. Moreover, the harvest this time was quite huge. After killing so many strong demons, he only needed to do a simple calculation to know that the 21st General level monster hunters had obtained a total of more than 10,000 merit points by killing the demons. As for the specific number, he couldn't estimate it yet, but 10,000 was already the most conservative estimate. The stronger the strength, the more they would have to pay. Long Haochen and Kai-Er were typical examples. There was no need to talk about Kai-Er. In a one-on-one situation, she had killed a rank 7 demon lord with her rank 5 strength. She had once again let Long Haochen see the terror of the spiritual stove of samsara. And Long Haochen had also fully demonstrated the formidable strength that a leader should have. Whether it was as a commander or as the core of the team, he had almost achieved perfection. And in this mission, the one who had the biggest harvest was also him. In the previous few days of rest, Long Haochin had used the spiritual force detection gem to check his internal spiritual force. Now, he was already a rank 9 Earth Knight with an internal spiritual force of more than 3,700. Moreover, the saint's spiritual stove of samsara had clearly shown signs of evolution. In addition to the light elemental fairy Yating and the eternal melody necklace of unknown rank, Long Haochin was confident that as long as he was given a stable environment to train, he would be able to break through the bottleneck of the Radiance Knight rank in less than 2 months. It must be known that from the time he had broken through to rank 5 until now, it had not even been half a year. Even he himself felt that this kind of training speed was somewhat terrifying, and these were still not his biggest harvest. The biggest harvest was the Tower of Eternal Rest. Although he still did not know what the Tower of Eternity would ultimately bring him, this strange tower left behind by a necromancer of the Archmage rank was probably comparable to a divine relic. He must return alive. Long Haochin subconsciously clenched his fists. As long as he could survive, the next time he entered the demon's territory to carry out a mission, he would certainly have the ability to fly. From the mountain range, where the dread Howling Cave was located, to his current destination, it was approximately 400 miles. With his current speed, he should be able to arrive at his destination by the time the sky was bright. The central province of the demons was vast and located on a plain. The total area occupied nearly 1/10 of the demon's territory and was also the largest of the 24 provinces. The capital of the demons was located in the heart of the central province, but it was not called the Demon City. Instead, it was called the Heart City, from the meaning of the demon god's heart. The Heart City of the Demon City was originally the capital of a large human empire. Later on, it was occupied by the demons and transformed. After thousands of years, it evolved into its current state. The Heart City was extremely large, incomparable to any city in the Human Temple League. It was almost equivalent to the size of 20 Exorcist passes. The Heart City was square in shape, and the Demon Palace was located in the center of the Heart City. It itself was a city within a city. Demon Emperor Fengxiu's first-ranked demon god pillar was also in the Demon Palace. In addition to the Demon Palace, there were 4 other huge palaces in the 4 corners of the Heart City. They were the residence of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th ranked demon gods. Their demon god pillars were also in their respective palaces. The fact that the 5 strongest demon god pillars were all here showed how important the Heart City was to the entire demons. By the time Long Haochin saw this terrifyingly huge city, the sky had already brightened. However, because of this huge city's pitch-black walls, he actually couldn't see the light of dawn. In the sky above this huge city, dark clouds hovered, and the environment was completely different from the outside. Not a single ray of sunlight could shine into this city. From a distance, Long Haochin could only vaguely make out some hazy black gas that seemed to be constantly surging into the sky from within the city. Just by looking at it, he could clearly feel a stifling feeling. The light attribute spiritual energy in his body seemed to be suppressed to a great extent. The density of the dark element in this place was at least 3 times that of the outside world. Slowing down, Long Haochin simply tidied up his clothes, took out the token that Yu Yi had given him previously, and held it in his hand. He rubbed his cheeks to make his expression more relaxed, and then strode towards the Heart City with his head held high. He needed to recover from the exhaustion brought about by a night of running. Moreover, he couldn't possibly summon the light elemental fairy, Yu Ting, who was like the sun in the territory of the demons, to help him. Now that he was slowing down, he was slowly recovering from his exhaustion. From the time he saw the Heart City to the time he entered the city gates, it took Long Haochin a full hour. The Heart City was really too big, so much so that each side of the city wall had as many as 10 city gates. This could be said to be unique in the history of the Holy Demon Continent. Long Haochin chose the East City Gate, which was guarded by the Moon Devils. The 4 city gates of the Heart City were guarded by the 2nd, 3rd, fourth, and fifth ranked demon gods. The East City was the territory of the Moon Devils. Looking at Long Houchen's current appearance, it was obvious that he was a noble of the Moon Devils. At most, he had some dust on his body. After he showed his Moon Devil's Viscount token, he was immediately respectfully sent into the city by the Moon Devil's soldiers guarding the city gates. However, Long Houchen's back was covered in cold sweat. This was because even the lowest-ranked soldiers of the Moon Devils seemed to have the strength of around the 4th grade. They were not inferior to the great demons of the demons. He couldn't help but think that if Princess Yi did not have a certain human bloodline, perhaps when he met her, her strength would have been far more than the 5th grade. Walking into the Heart City with a seemingly calm expression, Long Houchen stood in a relatively remote corner and sized up the city that was the core of the demons. The roads in the Heart City of the Demon City were very wide. It was enough for the large horse carriages that Yu Yi used to travel side by side without crowding. On both sides of the streets, there were many shops. Many of them were high-rise buildings. The simple style even had some architectural characteristics of the glorious era. 6,000 years had passed. While the demons had brought great disasters to the humans, they had also gradually integrated the various knowledge of the human world. At a glance, this city did not seem to be much different from a human city. In fact, it was even more prosperous than any human city. However, upon closer inspection, it was different. Most of the buildings here were black. Even if they were not black, they were cold-toned. Although humans occasionally appeared on the streets, there were more demons of various kinds. Of course, low-level demons like the dual-bladed demons of the Zaylin clan could not be seen here. There were more powerful existences. Obviously, being able to live in the Heart City was a symbol of honor for any demons. Was this the foundation of the demons? Long Houchen sighed inwardly. Among the demons that passed by on the streets, he had already seen at least 4 level 6 powerhouses. There was even a level 7 existence. As they walked on the streets of the Heart City of the Demon City, they looked like ordinary civilians. There was no scene of people crowding around them. After a short period of observation, Long Houchen did not stay any longer and headed straight for his destination. He had a map. After entering the East City Gate, it was impossible for him to get lost in this almost square city. The Heart City of the Demon City was really too big. Long Houchen chose to enter from the nearest place. By the time he reached the Moon Demon Palace, an hour had passed. Although he had some understanding of the Heart City, when he stood in front of the Moon Demon Palace, Long Houchen was still filled with shock. This was just another small city. The dark purple walls were more than 10 feet tall. The wide palace walls and the city walls formed a square of unknown size. The palace walls were dark purple. When he reached here, Long Houchen could clearly feel the dark elements in the air becoming stronger. The dark elements here were twice as strong as other places in the city. Even the Sanctuary Alliance's great trial field was not as big as this Moon Demon Palace. Besides the Demon Palace, there were 3 other places like this in the Heart City. Long Houchen suddenly felt a little powerless. What kind of power would it take to break through such a powerful demonic city? Would there really be a day when humans could completely defeat the demon race? This thought only flashed in his mind for a moment. His faith was firm, and he quickly returned to normal. When he reached the Moon Demon Palace, Long Houchen took out his Moon Demon Viscount token and waved it before he strode in with his head held high. The title of Viscount of the Moon Devils was not only effective for the Moon Devils, but it was effective for all the demons. As a noble of the Moon Devils, he had a high status. Only the leader of the Moon Devils, Moon Demon Agars, had the right to order him around. When the guards saw the young Moon Demon Viscount, they quickly bowed. They did not doubt Long Houchen's identity at all. Other than the token, Long Houchen's appearance, which could even be described as stunning, was the best proof of entry. In the Moon Demon clan, the higher the status and the stronger the clansmen, the more handsome they were. As for Long Houchen's appearance, perhaps even a Moon Demon god Agars might not be a match for him. When the guards saw his purple eyes and appearance, they immediately retreated to the side without hesitation. They didn't even dare to look at the token he was waving. The Moon Demon Palace was huge. Long Haochin followed the map Yi gave him and walked quickly. At the same time, he completely concealed his aura. He was very clear about the danger here. The Moon Demon was the second strongest existence among the 72 demons. In this Moon Demon Palace, there should be no less than 10 Type 9 powerhouses. If he was exposed here, his only choice would be to use the blood contract with Hao Yue to teleport away. He could not even stay for a moment. Appearance was the best pass, and Long Haochin was secretly amazed along the way. All the Moon Devils that saw him, regardless of gender, age, or strength, would unknowingly reveal expressions of respect. Some even took the initiative to step aside to greet him, inviting him to go first. Although Yu Yi had mentioned the importance of appearance among the Moon Devils, Long Haochin did not expect it to be so useful. Regardless, it was a good thing, as it had saved him a lot of trouble. The Moon Demon Palace was separated into the Outer Palace and the Inner Palace. The Outer Palace was for the experts of the Moon Devils, while the Inner Palace was for the direct descendants of the Moon Demon. Compared to the spacious Outer Palace, the Inner Palace was more like a palace. When Long Dawn entered the Inner Palace, he was finally inspected. However, his Moon Fiend Viscount's medallion proved to be useful. The medallion represented a direct line of descent, allowing him to easily pass through. The moment he stepped into the palace, Long Haochin suddenly found it hard to breathe. The darkness element here was just too thick, to the point of being viscous. With every breath he took, it was as though the darkness element would enter his body, clashing with the light element within him. It was not a good feeling, and Long Haochin knew that if he stayed here for too long, his cultivation would continue to weaken. It seemed like the Moon Demon's demon god pillars should be within the Moon Demon Palace. However, he did not know where it was. The majestic purple palace rose and fell, looking noble, elegant, and dignified. Just this inner palace alone was comparable to the Temple League's holy city's governing residence. After Long Haochin entered, he did not dare to look around. He quickly took a detour from the side, bypassing the palace in front of him. After making a few turns, he arrived at a rather secluded area in the inner palace, where the sleeping quarters were located. It was surrounded by lush vegetation, and compared to the other palaces, this palace was more elegant. Stop! Don't you know this is the Princess Palace? How dare you barge in? Two tall female Moon Devils blocked Long Haochin's path. With just one look, Long Haochin could not help but gasp. These two Moon Devils looked to be in their 20s, but they were both at the 6th grade. Was this their talent? Long Haochin smiled bitterly. Although he knew that this was their innate ability, and that these demons could not compare to humans in terms of cultivation, he could not help but feel jealous. Please give the token to the princess. Long Haochin handed over his Moon Demon Viscount token, then took 2 steps back and stood proudly. Seeing the token, the faces of the 2 Moon Devils softened. Please wait a moment, Lord Viscount. As she spoke, one of the figures flashed. Long Haochin only felt that there was an additional purple moonlight in his line of sight. In the next instant, the girl's figure disappeared. Not long after, when a moonlight shone again, the girl appeared in her original position. Lord Viscount, Her Royal Highness invites you. Long Haochin nodded slightly and strode in. The 2 Moon Devils guarding the door looked at each other, and one of them whispered, "Wow, so handsome. This is the first time I've seen such a handsome Lord Viscount. Is he the future husband of our palace mistress?" The other girl said enviously, "Maybe. Only such a handsome and powerful clansman is worthy of Her Royal Highness. Look at his appearance, it's almost perfect. I estimate that he is at least in 8th grade powerhouse. Also, it won't be long before he reaches the 9th grade. He's definitely not over 50 years old." The average age of the Moon Devils was 500 years old, and 50 years old was definitely young for them. However, the Moon Devils were similar to the heaven-defying Demon Dragon clan in that their ability to reproduce was too weak. After adjusting the spiritual energy in his body, Long Haochin confirmed that his connection with Hao Yue was normal, then walked into the palace in front of him.